Hi guys. Tonight we slip back thousands of years into a world where winter is not a season to be admired from a heated room, but a force of nature so relentless that it decides whether you live or die. You trudge through endless snow, feet numb inside crude animal hide wrappings, and the world around you is muffled, quiet, a great white silence broken only by your own breath. The cave looms ahead like the mouth of some ancient beast, a hollow blackness waiting to swallow you whole. You hesitate for a moment, step inside, or stay in the freezing dark? Well, you probably won't survive this if you stay outside. The choice is obvious, isn't it? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you feel like it, drop a comment with your location and local time. I always love to know where in the world you're listening. Now, dim the lights. The first icy nightfall always feels the harshest. You step into the cavern, and the air rushes differently, cold but still, no longer driven by the cutting wind. It smells faintly of stone, dampness, and something animal that once sheltered here. Your shoulders sag as you set down the bundle of sticks you carried, the pitiful beginnings of a fire. The floor is uneven rock, gritty with dust and ice crystals, and you slip once or twice before finding a flat stretch near the wall. The walls seem to sweat with condensation, tiny beads glimmering in the faint daylight that manages to sneak past the entrance. Imagine sitting there, teeth chattering, as your companions trickle in one by one. Men, women, children, all wrapped in stitched hides stiff with frost. A few glance around nervously. Caves have always inspired both awe and fear. On the one hand, protection. On the other, shadows. Historians still argue whether our ancestors saw caves as sacred sanctuaries or merely practical shelters of desperation. Maybe both at once. The cold follows you inside, nipping at your fingertips. You rub them together, flexing stiff joints. Someone mutters that without fire, you won't make it through till morning. It's a mainstream fact, really. Archaeologists have found ancient hearths deep inside caves, their soot stains still black after tens of thousands of years. That blackened stone is like a fingerprint of survival, proof that people huddled in the same places you stand now, battling the same merciless winters. And yet, as your group settles, there's a moment of strange calm. You realize the silence is thicker here, the outside world muted. You can hear your own breath, a slow fog rising from your lips. You can hear the crunch of another's foot shifting on grit, even the occasional drip of water, somewhere in the dark recesses, echoes like a heartbeat. Someone shivers beside you, and you instinctively inch closer, shoulder to shoulder, hide to hide. It's a quirky tidbit you might not expect. Human beings can lose heat faster by isolation, while group huddling reduces energy loss significantly. Penguins know this, and so did your prehistoric kin. Already you feel a trace of borrowed warmth seeping into your arm, enough to keep your spirit tethered a little longer. You strike a flint, sparks dancing but not yet catching. The anticipation rises. All eyes fix on the tiny bursts of light. The thought flickers in your mind. Without fire, the cave remains just a cold tomb. With fire, it becomes a home. How often did they think like this? Did every strike feel like a gamble? Historians wonder if early humans believed fire was a gift from gods, or a force to be wrestled from stone by sheer stubbornness. Perhaps you lean toward the latter, because right now, you need it to live. At last, a wisp of smoke, then a fragile tongue of flame. It devours the dried moss you packed into the twigs, then crawls into the bigger sticks with a hiss. You cup your hands around it, protect it from draft, and soon enough the glow blooms wider. The cave's belly illuminates in jagged shapes, shadows stretching tall and thin like ghosts against the wall. You almost laugh, half with relief and half with awe. The fire's crackle is hypnotic, soothing, as if whispering, "For now, you are safe." And so the first night begins. You stretch out your sore legs, curling closer to the flames. The children press near, wide-eyed and too restless to sleep. Their breath comes quick, visible clouds mingling like tiny ghosts above the fire. Behind you, the dark stretches deeper, uncharted. The thought occurs, what if something lurks there? You tell yourself not to worry. Fires keep predators away. At least, that's what you hope. As the heat seeps into your bones, the exhaustion finally catches up. You realize how heavy your eyelids feel, how the roar of the wind outside has dulled to a faint hum. The stone floor beneath you is unkind, hard and unyielding, but tonight it is better than the open storm. You curl tighter, hiding your face in your fur collar. The flicker of flames paints the cave in warm orange pulses, almost like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Tomorrow will bring another test, finding more wood, more food, more reasons to keep going. But for this first night, as snow buries the world outside, you finally surrender to the rhythm of firelight and breath. And slowly, very slowly, you drift into uneasy sleep within the belly of stone. You wake with a start, the fire still flickering but low, its embers glowing like tired eyes watching the room. The cold has crept back into your fingers and toes, and the wind outside moans like some restless spirit prowling across the mountains. For a long moment, you just listen, the breathing of your companions, the occasional cough, the faint shuffle of someone adjusting in sleep. Then you realize something. You're alive. You made it through the first icy nightfall. But surviving one night is only a beginning. Now comes the task of choosing the cavern wisely, whether this hollow in the mountain will be the place to endure weeks or even months of winter's cruelty. Your ancestors did not simply stumble into the first hole in the hillside and declare it home. Choosing a cavern meant reading the land as carefully as you might read a map today. You rise stiffly, joints cracking, and move toward the cave's mouth, where dawn filters in like a faint grey whisper. Beyond the entrance stretches a frozen wilderness, snow-laden pines, jagged cliffs, a white horizon that swallows distance. You shiver again, though not only from the cold. The world looks vast, merciless, but the cave behind you is your only shield. Prehistoric people had criteria, though perhaps they did not list them out the way we do. A mainstream historical fact. Excavations show that groups favored caves with southern or southeastern entrances. Why? Because those openings let in the morning sun, warming the interior at least for a brief time, while blocking the worst of the northern winds. You notice now, as you face outward, that the pale light does indeed spill gently onto the rock at your feet, a modest blessing. But it isn't just about sunlight. You take in the slope outside. Too steep, and it's impossible for children and elders to reach. Too flat, and floods or snowdrifts might block the mouth. You crouch and study the ground, as if your survival hinges on every pebble and patch of ice, which it does. Historians still argue whether groups return to the same caves year after year, almost like seasonal homes, or whether they wandered, taking whatever shelter they found. Either way, the careful eye on location was not random chance. You feel that truth in your bones as you scan for signs of safety. Inside, you pace the walls, running your fingers over the damp stone. The cavern must be large enough to hold everyone, but not so vast that heat dissipates into emptiness. Too narrow, and smoke from the fire will choke you. You notice the blackened ceiling where soot has already begun to cling. The smell is sharp, resinous, but tolerable. Somewhere above, a thin crack serves as a natural chimney. Good fortune. Without such ventilation, you might suffocate long before winter ended. And then there's the question of company. The cave is not only attractive to you but also to predators. Bears, wolves, even lions once claimed these spaces. A quirky tidbit. Some Paleolithic people appear to have shared caves with hyenas. Alternating use across seasons, archaeologists find bones of both human and beast layered in the same soil. Imagine stepping into a chamber only to discover it already occupied by snarling jaws. That thought lingers with you now, as you scan the deeper recesses. Your torchlight trembles against the walls, and every shadow looks like it might move. As you explore, You stumble upon a shallow alcove, perfect for stacking supplies. Another corner seems drier, less icy a place for bedding. Already, you see the cavern as a village in miniature, each nook serving a purpose. You picture where the children will sleep, where tools will be sharpened, where fat lamps will glow. The rock itself becomes architecture, designed not by humans but by nature, yet interpreted by desperate ingenuity. You crouch at the entrance again, glancing outward. The landscape must also provide resources. A cave too far from water or game is a death trap disguised as shelter. In this spot you note faint deer tracks in the snow leading down to a frozen stream. There will be hunting chances, though meager. Branches scattered along the slope hint at enough fuel for a few more fires. Not plentiful, but better than nothing. Your heart beats faster not from fear this time, but from a budding sense of hope. Perhaps you have chosen well? You imagine the debates that might have unfolded among your group, the elders insisting this cave is too damp, the hunters pressing that game trails lie close, the mothers pointing out drafts along the floor that would chill the children. Historians still puzzle over whether leadership was rigid or shared in such bands. Did one chief decide? Or was it a chorus of opinions weighed in turn? In your ears, the echoes of imaginary voices rise, each anxious for survival, each desperate to choose right. Back near the fire, you sit and watch as others stir awake. Their faces are lined with fatigue, their noses red from cold, their hair damp from breath condensed in the night. A child sneezes, and all eyes flicker with worry. Illness spreads fast in close quarters. The choice of cavern could mean the difference between a thriving clan and a dwindling one. The daylight grows stronger now, casting sharper shapes across the stone. You notice small carvings scratched into the wall marks left by someone before you. Perhaps they are just random gouges, or perhaps a symbol, a memory from another group who tested this cave and survived, or didn't. You run your fingers over the grooves, half comforted, half unsettled. The cave is older than you, older than anyone alive. You are merely the next tenant in a chain stretching back beyond memory. Practical thoughts tug you from such musings. Already, smoke curls lazily from the embers, promising warmth if fed again. You rise, stretching your sore muscles, and prepare to gather more wood. But you pause to look once more around the cavern. It has flaws, yes, drafts, damp corners, ominous shadows, but also the bones of a winter home. You decide silently, even before voicing it aloud. This is the place. Here, in this hollow of stone, you will gamble against the cold and see if humanity can outlast yet another season. You smile faintly at the irony. In the modern world, you fuss over mattress firmness or thermostat settings. Here, you weigh your life on sunlight angles, predator tracks, and the angle of a cave mouth. Funny how comfort can mean such different things. You shake your head at the thought, then bend to stoke the fire, your decision firm. As sparks leap into the cavern air, you know that the cave itself is no passive shelter. It will test you, press you, hold you in its jaws. And yet, you whisper, almost as if to the stone itself, keep us through this winter, just one more winter. You step back into the daylight, your breath trailing in thin clouds that drift and vanish against the pale air. The decision about the cave has been made, but a cave without fuel is only a tomb. Your fingers ache from the cold as you flex them, preparing for the day's work, gathering firewood. The snow crunches underfoot, and you squint against the sharp gleam of the sun on white drifts. Around you, the forest waits, tall trunks looming like watchful guardians, their branches heavy with frost. It is well established that prehistoric people relied heavily on fuel wood, dried grasses, animal dung to keep fires alive through the bitter months. Archaeological evidence shows layers of ash in settlement sites, not just in Europe but across Asia and Africa, suggesting that constant fire maintenance was central to survival. And yet, even knowing this, you can feel how precarious the task is. Out here, surrounded by endless snow, wood is not an endless gift. Each branch must be pried from the earth, carried on your back, and guarded as if it were treasure. You tread carefully into the trees, searching for fallen limbs. Not just any wood will do fresh. Green branches are too wet and smoky. You look instead for brittle ones, dead for months, their bark splitting under your grip. The air smells of resin and frost, a sharp combination that stings your nose. With every crack of a snapped branch, sound echoes into the silent forest. For a heartbeat, you wonder who or what might be listening. You might be surprised to learn that wood gathering wasn't always a simple matter of collecting what lay scattered. In regions with scarce trees, groups sometimes stored bundles of fuel well before winter set in, much as you might stock a pantry today. Imagine dragging entire logs across icy ground, hauling them up into a cavern, and stacking them like sacred currency. Those piles represented warmth, food cooked, predators deterred, and lives extended. But there is more to wood than fire. As you carry the first bundle toward the cave, your shoulders straining beneath the weight, you think of its many uses: shaping tools, carving handles, fashioning spears. Every stick carries the potential to be something else, and choosing between warmth and weapon might be a daily dilemma. Experts remain divided on whether prehistoric groups organized specialized roles, some dedicated to gathering fuel, others to hunting, or whether each person shared every task. You imagine arguments rising, one person urging the hunters to focus on meat, another snapping that without fire, meat cannot be cooked, and without cooked food, sickness spreads faster. You stumble once, slipping on a patch of ice, and your bundle of wood scatters. The sound startles a bird from the undergrowth, its wings flapping wildly before disappearing into the white sky. Your heart races, not from the bird itself, but from the reminder that sudden noises can draw predators. You crouch quickly, gathering the sticks again, tucking them under your arm. The thought of returning empty-handed fills you with dread. Back in the cave, children's eyes are already watching, waiting for comfort that only fire can provide. As you trudge back, the cold seeps into your knees, and your breath grows ragged. Still, when the cave mouth comes into view, there is a swell of relief. Inside, the others shift closer as you drop the bundle near the fire pit. Sparks flare when new wood is fed to the embers, and warmth begins to pulse outward. For a brief time, the stone walls seem to breathe with you, sharing in the fragile victory of heat. Later, you return to the forest, this time with two others. You spread out, combing through snow-laden ground. It is slow work. The forest floor is buried, branches hidden, roots frozen solid. One companion curses softly when his foot sinks into an icy hollow. Another points out claw marks etched into a tree trunk, signs of a bear. The marks are old, perhaps from seasons past, but they remind you that the forest is not yours alone. Curiously, traces of ancient fires have been found even in places where trees were scarce, such as tundra regions. This suggests that people sometimes burned bones and fat for fuel. The smell must have been pungent, acrid smoke filling caves in place of wood's more familiar crackle. You imagine trying that now, feeding a flame with animal remains, the air heavy and bitter, yet still better than shivering to death. When you return with another load, muscles aching, the fire leaps higher, and the group visibly relaxes. Someone hums softly, a tune without words, perhaps just a rhythm to match the popping of sap in the flames. For a moment, the children forget the cold and laugh, chasing shadows across the walls. Their joy feels fragile, like glass, but it is enough to lift the weight from your chest. The day stretches on, hours blending into the endless rhythm of gathering, carrying, and feeding the fire. By evening, a modest pile of wood rests against the wall, each piece a promise against the night. You run your hand over the stack, pride stirring. It may not be enough for the whole season, but for tonight at least, it feels like abundance. No consensus exists on how much wood a band of people might have required for a single winter, though estimates run high. Some anthropologists calculate that maintaining even a small flame might consume dozens of kilograms daily. Multiply that by weeks of storms, and you begin to understand the urgency gnawing at you now. Tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after, you will need to repeat this ritual again and again. The forest will become as familiar as the cave itself, each tree a marker, each branch a lifeline. As dusk falls, you sit near the fire and let exhaustion settle in. The flames stretch upward, throwing amber light onto the damp stone. Smoke curls gently into the crack above, a blessing you're increasingly grateful for. You close your eyes for a moment, listening to the fire's constant rhythm, the soft hiss, the occasional pop, the sigh of collapsing ash. In that sound lies comfort, like a lullaby whispered by the earth itself. And yet, deep down, you know the struggle has only begun. The cave is chosen, the first bundles stacked, but winter's hunger is patient. Tomorrow the search will resume. For now, though, you allow yourself the smallest luxury, a breath released slowly, warmth seeping into your skin, and the thought, fleeting but real, that maybe, just maybe, you can survive. The fire you gathered so carefully has survived the night, though barely. Its heart glows faintly, tiny embers buried in a grey blanket of ash. You kneel, coaxing it back to life with a careful breath, watching sparks bloom like startled fireflies. A thin flame catches, wavers, and then steadies. Relief washes over you. If the embers had died completely, you would have had to strike stone again, praying for the right spark. Now the fire is alive, and with it, so are you. Findings from excavations confirm that early people built simple hearths from stones arranged in circles or shallow pits. Archaeologists have uncovered these charred outlines in caves across Europe, some dating back more than 300,000 years. They are more than remnants of warmth. They are evidence of deliberate design, the earliest human attempt to tame nature within walls of stone. And here, in the cavern you now call shelter, you too crouch at such a ring, adding wood until the glow becomes a steady flame. The warmth spreads outward, a fragile shield against the bitter draught that sneaks along the cave floor. You hold out your hands, palms tingling as heat rushes back into them. The fire is not just survival, it is community. You notice how others draw close, knees pressed together, eyes fixed on the dancing flames. The fire's glow paints every face in flickering bronze, softening harsh lines, turning strangers into kin. It's almost impossible not to believe that fire has a voice, whispering stories in every crack and hiss. What often goes unnoticed is how dangerous this miracle could be. A flame left unchecked could consume precious fuel too quickly, or worse, send sparks leaping into bedding hides. Some researchers argue that firemaking wasn't practiced every day. Instead, embers were carefully guarded, carried in bundles of bark or stone bowls when groups moved from one place to another. Imagine cradling a smouldering coal like a living child, protecting it from wind and rain, knowing your survival depended on keeping it alive. As you stare into the blaze, the light reflects off the cave walls, creating long shadows that writhe like phantom dancers. You blink, half dreaming already, though the day has barely begun. Fire hypnotizes, it always has. Some scientists suggest that the calming effect of watching flames might have played a role in human evolution, encouraging longer periods of rest and social bonding. Sitting here, lulled by the crackle, you understand it instinctively. Your mind drifts, slower now, soothed by rhythm and warmth. Still, experts remain divided on how much time people truly spent indoors by the fire. Some believe bands huddled close through long nights, conserving energy in near stillness. Others argue that the hearth was only one stop in a wider pattern of constant foraging and hunting. Perhaps both are true. Winter nights bound you to the flame, while daylight hours forced you into the snow. As you feed another stick to the blaze, you wonder which rhythm your group will follow, which balance between stillness and struggle will carry you through. One of the hunters sharpens a flint near the fire, its edge catching the glow. Sparks leap each time stone meets stone, tiny stars against the gloom. Another mother hums softly, rocking a drowsy child whose eyes glimmer with reflected flame. The sound of crackling wood joins the hum, blending into something that feels almost like music. You lean back against the stone wall, close your eyes, and let the heat soak into your spine. For a moment, it is almost possible to believe the cave itself breathes with you. Curiously, some hearths discovered deep inside caves show evidence of multiple rebuilding, layer upon layer of ash and stone. This suggests not only repeated use but a tradition of returning, as if people remembered which caves kept them alive and passed down that knowledge across generations. You picture yourself years from now, leading another group into this very spot, telling children where to place the first stones. Fire is not just warmth, it is memory, woven into stone and story alike. You open your eyes and watch as the flames begin to shrink again, wood reduced to glowing coals. The hunger of fire is endless. You sigh, realizing the pile of fuel already looks smaller. The forest calls once more, but your body aches from yesterday's labor. For now, you settle for nudging the embers, arranging them into a tighter cluster, coaxing every spark to last longer. Efficiency, you remind yourself, is as important as abundance. Later, as dusk descends, you gather again around the hearth with the others. Outside, the snow falls heavier, muffling the world in silence. Inside, the fire roars brighter, licking at the stone ring. Shadows sway across the walls, taking shapes that tease the imagination: bison, hunters, great birds with wings spread wide. Someone chuckles nervously, pointing out the likeness of a wolf's head in the glow. You all laugh, but quietly, as though not to wake whatever spirits might be listening. There is still debate about whether prehistoric people saw fire as purely practical or profoundly sacred. Some researchers argue that it was worshipped, fed like a deity, guarded by ritual. Others suggest it was treated as a tool, no different from stone or bone. But as you gaze at the flame now, warm light brushing your face, you suspect the truth lies somewhere between. Fire demands reverence, even as it grants life. It feels alive, and in your weary bones, you cannot help but honor it. The night deepens, and one by one, your companions drift into slumber, curled near the warmth. You linger a little longer, staring into the embers, letting the glow lull you into calm. The cave is quiet, save for the fire's murmur and the occasional sigh of sleeping bodies. You draw your fur cloak tighter, rest your head against the stone, and finally surrender to the rhythm of the flames. In the hearth's glow, winter feels distant, even if only for a fragile moment. The fire has carried you through another night, but the rock beneath you is merciless. When you stir awake, your shoulder aches where it pressed against uneven stone. You shift, wincing, then glance around. Others are still curled in sleep, their faces softened by the faint glow of the embers. The cave air is damp, the draught creeping across the floor like a sly intruder. Warmth from the fire only reaches so far, and beyond its circle, cold lingers like a waiting predator. That is why bedding, real bedding, becomes as important as the flame itself. Archaeological evidence shows that prehistoric groups layered animal hides, rushes, and even pine needles on cave floors to soften the rock and insulate against the cold. Excavations in South Africa revealed bedding made of grasses and herbs, some deliberately chosen for their insect-repelling qualities, dating back tens of thousands of years. One thing we know for certain is that the instinct for comfort has always been present. Tonight, you prepare to make the cave's floor survivable, transforming hard stone into a place where sleep doesn't feel like punishment. You drag a rolled hide closer, the fur stiff from frost at the edges. Spreading it across the ground, you notice how it immediately changes the space. The hide muffles the stone's chill, softens its edges, and adds a faint, musky smell of animal. Around you, others are doing the same, stretching reindeer skins, bison pelts, even scraps of fox and rabbit, sewn together in patchwork quilts. The cave floor slowly becomes a patchwork of textures, soft fur, stiff hide, woven grasses. To modern eyes it might seem crude, but here it is luxury. You might be surprised to learn that hides were not only for bedding but also layered over sleeping bodies, sometimes weighed down with stones at the edges to trap warmth. It's not so different from tucking yourself under blankets, except your blanket once breathed, ran, and bled. The faint smell of smoke clings to them from nights near the fire, a smell that lingers in your nose but reassures you as well. That scent means warmth, safety, and a barrier between fragile human skin and ruthless cold. You lay down for a moment, testing the surface. The fur pricks against your cheek, the warmth already gathering between hide and skin. Still, comfort is fragile. Lice and fleas often lurked in bedding, feeding on sleeping bodies. There is no escaping them entirely. Some groups sprinkled ash into the furs, an attempt to deter pests. Others burned old bedding when spring came, starting fresh each year. Scholars continue to debate how widespread these practices were, since direct evidence is rare, but the logic feels timeless. Comfort requires constant maintenance. A child tumbles onto the hides, laughing despite the cold. His giggles echo through the cavern, breaking the monotony of coughs and whispers. He rolls from one fur to another, as though testing which pelt is softest. The sight makes you smile despite your exhaustion. It's easy to forget, in the shadow of hunger and cold, that joy still exists here, woven into small moments. Even in caves, even in winters that threaten every life, laughter persists. You glance toward the back of the cavern, where a woman spreads dried grasses she collected weeks before the snow fell. The stems crackle as she arranges them, releasing a faint, earthy scent that reminds you of warmer days. Layers of grass beneath the hides create extra insulation, a trick passed down through generations. Modern researchers have found charred remains of such grasses, suggesting that when they grew too dirty, people simply burned them, clearing space for fresh bedding. Waste not every element served another purpose. Experts remain divided on whether bedding was shared communally or whether individuals had defined spots. Some evidence suggests entire families bundled together beneath one large hide, while other finds point to smaller, separated nests. As you watch, people shift closer, pulling their hides into overlapping piles. The logic of shared warmth prevails again. Against the winter, solitude is dangerous. Bodies pressed together conserve heat, and comfort is multiplied by contact. You return to your own space and begin layering your furs more carefully. You spread one thick pelt across the ground, then another on top, softer, to touch your skin. You arrange the edges to overlap with your neighbor's bedding, creating one continuous surface. The work is simple, repetitive, almost meditative. Each adjustment reduces the bite of the cold. Each layer feels like another promise of survival. Curiously, in some excavated sites, researchers have found impressions of woven mats beneath hides, evidence that people experimented with braiding reeds or bark strips into more stable bedding foundations. Imagine the patience required, hours of twisting and weaving, only to cover it all with skins and grasses. Yet such efforts reflect a universal truth. Humans have always sought not only survival but a measure of rest. Night falls again, and when you lie down, you notice the difference immediately. The floor no longer steals warmth from your bones as quickly. The hides trap your body heat, and the overlapping layers mean fewer drafts. Around you, others murmur softly, voices fading as comfort takes hold. The fire's glow flickers across fur surfaces, making them shine like liquid bronze. For the first time in days, your muscles truly relax. But no bedding is perfect. You roll once, and the hide shifts beneath you, revealing stone beneath. A shiver runs up your spine. You pull the fur tighter around your shoulders, whispering under your breath a small plea that the warmth will last until dawn. No one else hears, but you suspect everyone whispers their own small prayers each night, to stone, to fire, to fate. There is still discussion among researchers about whether bedding practices influence social structure. Did those who hunted earn the thickest hides, while others took scraps? Or was warmth shared equally, no matter one's role? Watching the group now, you cannot tell. Children are tucked between parents, elders lie close to the fire, and everyone else shifts where space allows. The arrangement looks less like hierarchy and more like instinct, guided not by status but by survival. You close your eyes, and the scents of fur and smoke fill your nose. The faint sound of breathing all around you is strangely comforting. Each exhale is a reminder that others live too, that you are not alone in the dark. Beneath you, the hides press back against your body, rough but warm. Against all odds, you find yourself drifting into real sleep, deeper, steadier, almost peaceful. The cave, with its rough walls and cold drafts, has become something else tonight. It has become a bedroom, crude yet intimate, stitched together from fire, fur, and faith. The stone may be unyielding, but between hides and bodies, you create something that feels like home. You awaken with a strange heaviness in your chest, a dull ache that lingers long after your eyes open. The fire still burns faintly, but the air around you feels thick, almost sticky. You inhale slowly and realize the cave itself is different this morning. The ceiling above is stained black, streaked with soot that drifts downward like a slow, invisible rain. Smoke from the fire has settled into every crack and hollow, clinging to stone-like paint that will never fade. Your throat scratches as you swallow. Archaeologists have long noted smoke stains in caves, some preserved for tens of millennia. These blackened ceilings are not accidents, they are time capsules, marking where hearths once flickered, where families once coughed, just as you do now. One thing scholars can agree on is this: prehistoric fires gave life, but they also poisoned the air. Each breath you take inside this cavern is a gamble, warmth or suffocation. The scent is sharp, a mix of pine resin, charred bark, and the musk of hides that have absorbed smoke night after night. It sticks in your hair, in your furs, even on your skin. The younger children rub their eyes, irritated by the haze, while the elders cough softly, trying not to draw attention to lungs that already labor under the burden of winter. It's a reminder that survival is never free. For every gift, there is a cost. You might be surprised to learn that some groups adapted by choosing caves with hidden vents or cracks in the roof, natural chimneys that carried smoke upward. Others seem to have managed by building smaller, controlled fires, just enough to glow without roaring. And in rare cases, people even dug shallow pits to direct air currents. A primitive engineering, born not from theory, but from desperate trial and error. You sit close to the fire now, squinting as the smoke curls in unpredictable patterns, sometimes sweeping low enough to sting your eyes. In the shifting haze, shapes appear: faces, animals, flickering forms that vanish as quickly as they appear. It's easy to imagine how such illusions might have been interpreted as spirits moving through the cavern. Some researchers propose that smoke and fire together may have sparked early myths, with shadows and fumes feeding the imagination of sleepless nights. Looking now, with your tired eyes, you can almost believe it. The group stirs slowly, voices muffled by the haze. A woman mutters about the smoke irritating her infant, pulling the child tighter into her furs. A hunter spits against the stone, disgusted with the taste of soot in his mouth. There is quiet tension in the air, not anger at each other, but frustration at the cave itself. The fire gives life, but it demands patience, discipline, and constant tending. Without it, you would freeze. With it, you choke. Curiously, not all cultures saw smoke only as a burden. In some cases, it may have been used intentionally to preserve meat or hides, the fumes keeping pests away and slowing rot. The very substance that burns your throat might also keep your food edible, your bedding free of infestation. Here, balance rules everything. Too much smoke, and you weaken. Just enough, and you gain tools of survival. You shuffle backward, away from the worst of the haze, and rest your back against the wall. The stone is cool, damp, but at least the air near the ground feels a little clearer. You breathe slowly, forcing calm into your chest. Experts remain divided on whether prehistoric groups fully understood airflow or simply endured what they could not change. Perhaps they experimented endlessly, or perhaps they simply sat in the haze, coughing, eyes watering, because there was no alternative. You imagine both possibilities as you wipe your face, smoke stinging your eyes. By midday, the haze thins slightly, drifting upward to settle near the blackened ceiling. Light from the cave mouth slants in, catching tiny particles that glitter like dust motes. It is strangely beautiful, in a harsh way like a galaxy suspended in stone. You catch yourself staring too long, mesmerized, until a cough from your neighbor pulls you back to reality. The fire needs feeding again, and you add another branch, wincing as new smoke billows upward. The balance is fragile, always fragile. You try adjusting the stones, tilting them, shifting the wood's placement. Maybe, just maybe, the flow will improve. Or maybe it won't. That uncertainty defines every breath. Toward evening, you notice the children have grown quieter, their energy dulled by the weight of smoky air. One curls into his mother's side, eyes half shut, though it is not yet night. The elders seem weary too, shoulders sagging, voices softer. The smoke is more than discomfort, it drains, it lingers, it presses into the body like invisible weight. And yet no one suggests extinguishing the fire. The alternative, cold stone, frostbite, death, is worse. You realize that this compromise, this uneasy partnership with flame, is the very heart of winter survival. What often goes unspoken in modern accounts is how intimate people became with fire's temperament. It was no mere tool. It had moods. It sulked when fuel was damp, roared when fed too quickly, and sulked again when neglected. Families learned to read it the way you might read a friend's face adjusting behavior to suit its demands. Here, as the night deepens and the smoke thickens again, you feel that intimacy. The fire is alive, temperamental, yet indispensable. Later, lying on your hide bedding, you gaze upward through the haze. The soot-dark ceiling seems lower than before, as though pressing down on you. You exhale slowly, your breath joining the invisible tide. Around you, people cough, sigh, whisper in low voices. The fire pops once, sending sparks leaping, and shadows scatter across the walls. For a moment, you think you see movement in the darkness beyond the suggestion of eyes watching through the smoke. But when you blink, there is nothing, only stone and soot. The smoke is both curse and blessing, both torment and protection. It makes you cough, but it also marks the cave as human space, claimed by warmth and will. Outside, the storm rages. Inside, the smoke lingers, heavy but familiar. You close your eyes, surrendering to it, letting your body sink into the hides as sleep comes slowly. Even as you cough, even as your lungs ache, you know, without this smoky ceiling, without this fragile flame, you would not see morning. The cold does not fight fair. It creeps into the cave like a thief, slipping under furs, biting at toes, chilling every inch of uncovered skin. Tonight you learn another truth of survival. Warmth is not just fire, not just hides, it is people. The group gathers tighter than before, bodies pressed together in an instinct as old as breath. You shift closer to your neighbor, your shoulders touching, and feel the simple miracle of borrowed heat. Archaeological evidence shows that shared sleeping was nearly universal in prehistoric bands. Excavations at sites in Europe and Asia reveal bedding areas large enough to hold multiple individuals, suggesting that families, and perhaps entire groups, slept shoulder to shoulder. Researchers widely agree that this practice conserved energy. What one body lost, another provided. In a cave where every spark of heat is precious, solitude is a luxury no one can afford. You settle into the heap of hides, adjusting your position until you find a spot where your ribs don't press painfully against stone. Around you, bodies breathe in rhythm, rising and falling like a tide. The sound is oddly calming, each exhale a reassurance that you are not alone in this winter. The smell, however, is thick, smoke clinging to hair, animal musk from hides, the sharp tang of sweat unwashed for days. Yet even these scents comfort you, grounding you in the certainty of companionship. Curiously, some anthropologists suggest that this closeness may have been more than practical. Skin-to-skin warmth could have deepened bonds, reinforced trust, even shaped the beginnings of intimacy and cooperation. Imagine huddling in the dark, listening to the heartbeats of those around you, knowing that your life depends on theirs and theirs on yours. Warmth becomes more than heat, it becomes connection. You curl tighter, your knees brushing against another's. A child shifts in sleep, nestling into the crook of your arm without realizing it. You let them stay, knowing that their smaller body bleeds warmth faster, needing yours to survive. For a moment, you wonder if prehistoric groups ever resisted this closeness. Did some long for space, for privacy? Experts remain divided on whether personal boundaries as we imagine them today had any meaning in such contexts. Perhaps survival blurred all lines. Perhaps warmth erased the idea of mine and yours. As the night deepens, the group huddle transforms into a living creature, shifting and sighing with every dream. You can feel warmth seeping into your bones, melting away the sharp ache of the stone beneath. The fire glows at the center, but it is not the only sun here. Bodies themselves become small flames, each contributing to a greater whole. You might be surprised to learn that similar practices are seen in the animal world. Wolves curl together in dens, penguins form great huddles, even mice share burrows for warmth. Humans, though, added an extra layer: language, story, song. Huddled together, you whisper into the night, passing tales and reassurances in the dark. A woman murmurs to her child. A hunter recounts a dream. These quiet words weave through the group like threads, tying everyone tighter. Your own mind drifts as warmth and exhaustion tug at you. The fire cracks, a sharp sound that echoes in the stone chamber. Shadows shift across the walls, merging with the outlines of the sleeping. You close your eyes, listening. Outside, the wind howls, a predator frustrated at the cave's shield. Inside, the air is heavy, but it is filled with life breaths, heartbeats, murmurs. You realize how precious these sounds are. They are proof that the group endures. Some researchers propose that this collective sleeping may have shaped human rhythms of rest itself. Instead of one deep sleep, people likely dozed in cycles, waking often, shifting, listening. One person stirred while another drifted, so that someone was always faintly aware of the surroundings. This shared vigilance reduced danger from predators, a kind of organic watch system born from the pattern of restless bodies. Thinking on it now, it makes sense. You feel the twitch of a neighbor beside you, the cough of an elder, and you know the cave is never fully defenseless. You adjust your hide again, tucking it beneath your chin. The warmth is imperfect, your feet still sting with cold, your face prickles where the draft sneaks through, but it is enough. Enough to let your body ease into the edge of sleep. Enough to carry you through one more night. Comfort is not absolute here. It is measured in moments where cold does not bite quite as hard, where your bones do not rattle quite as fiercely. An odd piece of evidence hints at another layer. In some caves, traces of ochre and ash have been found in bedding areas, possibly sprinkled deliberately. Ash repels insects. Ochre may have had both symbolic and practical value. Lying here, wrapped in hides and pressed against others, you wonder if people sometimes painted themselves before sleep, not just for ritual, but for comfort against pests. The idea seems strange yet practical. The night presses on. Dreams blur with waking thoughts. You imagine the fire as a beating heart, each flicker sending warmth through the cavern body, each crackle a whispered word. In the darkness, you feel hands brush against yours, a child's breath warm on your arm, a neighbor's shoulder steady against your own. This closeness is not optional. It is the difference between life and death. There is still no consensus among scholars on whether such communal sleeping arrangements strengthened group hierarchies or dissolved them. Did the strongest claim the warmest spots near the fire? Or did families protect the vulnerable by placing them at the center? Watching your own group now, the pattern seems fluid. Children are cradled in the warmest pockets, elders given places shielded from the worst drafts, while others fill the outer edges. The cave becomes an organism arranging itself instinctively, survival guiding every placement. You close your eyes once more. The cold lingers, yes, but the warmth is stronger tonight, more reliable. You surrender to it, letting your body sink into the pile of hides, letting your breath match the rhythm of those around you. In this living knot of warmth and flesh, winter feels less like a sentence and more like a challenge you just might endure. The fire has dimmed to embers, and the cave is quiet, save for the soft chorus of breathing. You stir awake, but not from dreams. Something else has broken your sleep. A sound, a drop, another. You tilt your head and listen carefully. Somewhere in the darkness, water falls from the cave ceiling. The rhythm is irregular, but each note is sharp, echoing through the chamber as if a drumbeat played by invisible hands. Archaeological digs in limestone caves often reveal stalactites and mineral formations shaped by centuries of dripping water. These caves were not silent. They sang with their own music, whether people wanted it or not. It is well established that groups living in such spaces had to adapt to constant dripping, the floor slick with dampness, hides soaked if laid carelessly. Even today, blackened stains on the stone show where moisture seeped long before your arrival. You sit up, shivering as cold air brushes your skin. The sound grows louder when you focus. Plop, 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 each droplet a reminder that caves are alive, not static. They breathe, they sweat, they move in ways subtle but relentless. A stream of meltwater, perhaps from snow above, has found its path through cracks in the roof. It falls onto stone, splashes, then meanders across the floor until it disappears into the shadows. What often escapes notice is how such sounds play tricks on the mind. In the stillness of night, a single drip can feel like footsteps, like the slow approach of something unseen. You glance toward the cavern's depths, half expecting to see eyes gleaming in the dark. Your hand tightens on a piece of wood near your bedding, though you know full well that water is the culprit. Still, instinct does not care for logic, it only listens for danger. You might be surprised to learn that some groups use dripping water to their advantage. Archaeological evidence suggests that certain depressions in caves were deliberately placed beneath drips to collect clean water. Imagine bending low to drink directly from a hollowed stone, grateful that nature provides a slow, steady trickle when streams outside are frozen solid. Yet the same dripping, if uncontrolled, can rot hides, extinguish fires, or flood a sleeping area. Water is both friend and saboteur. As you listen, you notice how the droplets echo differently depending on where they land. A hollow splash against stone resonates deep, booming. A soft patter against moss is barely a whisper. The entire cavern becomes an instrument, every drip a note in an endless song. Some researchers suggest that early humans may have even used these natural acoustics in rituals or storytelling, weaving the cave's own voice into their chants. Experts remain divided on whether such use of sound was deliberate or incidental, but the possibility lingers in your mind. You rise quietly, careful not to disturb the sleepers around you, and walk toward the dripping. The stone beneath your feet is slick, cold, and uneven. You move slowly, tracing the sound until you find the source. A crack above glistens, faint droplets gathering before falling with steady rhythm. You crouch and watch the water splatter against the rock, scattering tiny crystals that catch the faint light of the embers. It is strangely hypnotic, almost soothing, like listening to rain from beneath a roof. But the practical side of your mind sharpens. The bedding near this area will need to be moved. Damp hides quickly become useless, their warmth leached away by moisture. You pull one pelt aside, dragging it closer to the fire's glow. Your breath rises in mist as you work, and soon your hands sting from the cold stone. Still, you persist. Comfort is never free. It is built, adjusted, guarded every moment. When you return to your spot, the sound seems louder now, echoing through your head even when you close your eyes. Plop, plop. The cave feels restless, as though the stone itself were dripping away piece by piece. You curl deeper into your furs, listening to the rhythm until your thoughts blur. Does it lull you, or does it haunt you? Perhaps both at once. Curiously, some cave sites preserve calcite deposits that formed over ash layers, proof that dripping water sealed ancient hearths beneath stone. This means fires once roared in the very spots where minerals now gleam. Imagine returning to such a place generations later, seeing glittering rock where ancestors once warmed themselves. Did they wonder at the transformation? Did they sense continuity in the stone's slow work? The night stretches on, and every drop becomes part of your dreams. You dream of rivers flowing underground, of echoes that chase themselves forever, of the cave itself speaking in a language too slow for you to understand. When you wake again, the fire has been rekindled, the group stirring to life. The dripping still continues, patient and steady, as though it never paused for your slumber. By day, the sound is less haunting. With voices and movement filling the cave, it becomes background noise, a steady reminder of the world above. Still, you adjust your bedding farther from the wet patch, and others do the same. The group learns quickly, adapting to the cave's quirks, just as others must have done for generations. The stone is no passive shelter. It has its own rules, and you learn them one drop at a time. There is still discussion among researchers about how prehistoric groups felt about such natural features. Did they see dripping water as a nuisance, a danger, or a sacred presence? Some argue that caves with active water may have been avoided for habitation, while others point to evidence of long-term use despite the inconvenience. Watching the droplets now, gleaming like tiny stars, you cannot decide which view feels more true. Perhaps, like you, they lived in both mindsets, at once irritated by the dampness, yet awed by the stone's quiet voice. That night, as you lie down again, the dripping continues. Plop, plop. You adjust your hides, close your eyes, and let the rhythm carry you. The cave's heartbeat, you tell yourself. An ancient pulse, steady and endless. And wrapped in that thought, you surrender to uneasy rest, half comforted, half haunted, yet still alive. The day begins with footsteps crunching faintly at the cave's mouth. You open your eyes, ears pricked, unsure whether the sound is human or animal. For a moment, everyone holds their breath, as though the entire group shares the same thought. Danger. Then a voice calls softly, low but familiar. One of the hunters returns. Relief ripples through the cavern, loosening every shoulder at once. It is well established that prehistoric survival depended on the daily rhythm of foraging and hunting. Archaeological sites show piles of bones cracked open for marrow, stone tools scattered near animal remains, even caches of dried meat carefully stored in alcoves. No group could last long in winter without the constant effort of those who left the safety of the cave each day. And tonight, that rhythm plays out before your eyes. The hunter appears in the dim light, his breath steaming as he ducks inside. Across his shoulders hangs the carcass of a small deer, its legs bound with rawhide strips. His face is streaked with frost and fatigue, yet his eyes gleam with quiet triumph. You feel a surge of gratitude that tastes almost like joy. The cave smells instantly sharper, the metallic tang of blood mingling with smoke and damp stone. Hunger stirs in your belly, a gnawing that has haunted you for days. What often goes unmentioned in tidy historical accounts is how dangerous these hunts were. A single misstep on ice, a surprise from a hidden predator, or simply the cold itself could mean death far from the fire. You watch the hunter drop his prize onto the stone floor, and you know the risk he carried was not small. Every bite of meat is purchased with danger. He kneels near the fire, voice hoarse as he describes the hunt. Others gather close, listening not just for details of the kill but for hints of where game still lingers in this frozen world. Did he track near the stream? Did he see wolf prints? Was there more than one deer? His words are not idle storytelling. They are maps, warnings, promises wrapped in breath. Experts remain divided on whether storytelling itself began in hunts like this, as survival knowledge woven into narrative. Perhaps tonight you are listening to the earliest form of education, a spoken thread that binds generations. Children edge forward, wide-eyed, as the hunters begin to work. Stone blades flash in the firelight, cutting through hide with practiced care. The sound is soft but steady. Scrape, slice, pull. Steam rises from the carcass as warmth meets frozen flesh. The smell thickens, heavy but irresistible. Even the elders, weary and coughing, lean closer, their gazes sharp with anticipation. Hunger has no age. You might be surprised to learn that marrow, not just meat, was among the most prized parts of such kills. Crushed bones found in ancient sites show how carefully they were split to reveal the rich, fatty core. Tonight, you watch as a hunter sets a femur against stone and strikes it with another rock. It cracks open, revealing pale marrow that gleams in the firelight. He scoops some out with his fingers, offering it to the children first. Their faces light up, sticky with the warmth of nourishment. The group works together, stripping meat, setting aside sinew for cord, hide for bedding, bones for tools. Nothing is wasted. The cave fills with motion and purpose, the ordinary miracle of making survival from death. Around you, voices rise, some murmuring thanks, others humming softly to keep rhythm with their work. The fire blazes brighter, fed with new fat drippings that sizzle and pop, sending fragrant smoke curling upward. Curiously, archaeologists have found traces of cut marks on bones that suggest even scraps were boiled in hide pouches or roasted on stones. Imagine carefully placing bits of sinew on a flat rock near the fire, waiting for them to crisp, each morsel precious as treasure. The modern notion of waste simply did not exist. Tonight, as you lick a strip of meat clean, you understand why. Every bite carries life. As the meal progresses, the mood in the cave shifts. Laughter rises, voices grow louder. Children chase each other briefly before being pulled back by tired parents. The hunters boast gently, their words half serious, half in jest. The elders nod, satisfied, their eyes gleaming in the firelight. For a few hours, winter feels less like a punishment and more like a challenge you are winning. Yet beneath the joy, a current of worry remains. One deer is enough for a night, perhaps two. But what then? How long before the hunters return empty-handed, their breath ragged, their faces grim? There is still debate among researchers about whether prehistoric bands planned long-term food storage in winter or relied mostly on constant hunting. Some evidence of drying racks and pits suggests planning, yet other sites show little beyond scattered bones, as though survival teetered day by day. Listening now to the hunters, you sense both possibilities, hope and fear, woven together. You settle back as the fire crackles, chewing slowly, savoring each bite. The meat is tough, smoky, but it fills your belly, chasing away the sharp edge of hunger. The warmth spreads outward, not just from the fire, but from the satisfaction of survival shared. You glance around the circle, faces glowing with firelight and grease, and think, this is what it means to live another day. As the night deepens, the deer's bones are stacked neatly, ready for splitting and shaping tomorrow. The hides are stretched near the fire, drying in smoky heat. Children finally drift to sleep, bellies full, their breathing steady. The hunters lean back against the wall, exhaustion heavy but softened by pride. You close your eyes, listening to the fire's hiss and the faint hum of voices fading. The cave feels different tonight, less like a tomb, more like a hall of victory. Shadows still cling to the walls, but they seem less threatening, softened by the scent of meat and smoke. For the first time in many nights, you drift into sleep not only alive but nourished, and that small difference, you know, is everything. The deer is gone. Not gone entirely, its bones remain stacked near the wall, its hide stretched stiff by smoke, its sinew drying on cords, but the meat has been eaten, marrow scooped, every scrap consumed. The memory of fullness lingers in your belly, but hunger already begins to stir again. You sit near the hearth, staring at the low flame. Its warmth is weaker today, as though sulking. To keep it alive, you reach for flint and stone. Archaeological evidence shows that the ability to create fire on demand marked one of the greatest thresholds in human history. Earlier groups may have depended on carrying embers from one fire to the next, but eventually they mastered the spark stone against stone, steel-grey sparks leaping into tinder. Researchers widely agree that flint and pyrite were common tools, producing showers of sparks bright enough to start a blaze. Tonight, crouched by the hearth, you repeat that ancient act. The sound is sharp. Click, strike, hiss. Sparks leap, brief stars against the gloom. They land on a bundle of dried moss and bark shavings you've gathered. You lean close, lips pursed, blowing gently until one ember flares, glowing orange. The others watch in silence, their breaths held, for this moment is sacred in its own quiet way. A tiny flame shivers to life, then spreads hungrily into the tinder. Relief washes over you, as if you have conjured a miracle from stone. You might be surprised to learn that some archaeologists believe fire-making may have begun as early as 400,000 years ago, though not all scholars agree. There is still discussion about whether early people truly controlled fire at that stage or merely used natural blazes sparked by lightning. The evidence is scattered, charred bones here, ash layers there, but what cannot be denied is the awe of flame born from your own hands. Tonight, in this cave, you feel that awe firsthand. As the fire grows, its glow fills the cavern, stretching shadows across stone walls. The children press nearer, their faces lit by orange light. One points at the sparks still leaping from flint, eyes wide. To them it must seem like magic. Perhaps it feels like magic to you as well. Fire is more than warmth. It is power, the ability to command light where darkness ruled, to push back predators, to cook what would otherwise rot your stomach. Each spark is a promise. What often goes unnoticed is how dangerous this task could be. Striking stones can cut your skin, sending shards into your fingers, and once fire is alive, it is greedy. A flame too large devours fuel too quickly. A stray ember can leap onto furs. You remember the stories whispered by elders of fires that grew wild, consuming the very shelters meant to protect. Fire is a companion, but it is also a test. You strike again, this time for practice, letting sparks scatter harmlessly against stone. The rhythm is steady, meditative. Strike, spark, glow. Each attempt is a rehearsal for the night when embers fail, when the cold threatens to creep into every bone. You know that one day you may wake to find the hearth dead. On that day, these sparks will decide whether you live another sunrise. Curiously, some researchers suggest that firemaking itself may have shaped human cooperation. A skilled fire starter held power, respected or feared for their ability. Imagine one person in the group who could summon flame reliably. How might that change the balance of authority? Did such individuals become leaders, or were they simply honored specialists? Experts remain divided, but as you crouch here, striking stone, you feel the weight of that possibility. For now, though, you are content with the sparks dancing in your hands. The fire grows stronger, flames licking upward, crackling with life. You add a branch, then another, watching them blacken and curl. The smoke rises, softer today, carried more easily by the draft above. The cave breathes with the fire, and you breathe with it. The others relax, shoulders sagging as warmth seeps into their skin. You sit back, wiping soot from your fingers, heart slowing. The act is complete. The hearth is alive again. Later, as darkness falls, the group gathers close. The fire's glow is the only light. painting faces in shifting hues. A child asks you to show the sparks again, and you oblige, striking flint until brief bursts flash like fireflies. Laughter ripples through the cavern, soft but real. It's a reminder that survival does not erase wonder. Even in hunger, even in cold, people still marvel at the sight of light born from stone. You lean back against the wall, watching the fire dance. Shadows flicker like spirits across the cave, rising and vanishing with each gust of smoke. Your eyes grow heavy, lulled by the crackle. Yet the knowledge remains sharp. This act, repeated countless times across ages, is the difference between life and death. Without these sparks, without this flame, the cave is nothing but stone and silence. With it, the cave becomes home. There is still debate about how often groups practiced firemaking, whether daily or only in emergencies. Some scholars argue that carrying embers was safer, less wasteful. Others point to wear on flints that suggests frequent striking. In the end, the answer may not matter. What matters is the truth you feel in your bones. You must always be ready to call fire from stone, because winter waits for no one. As the night deepens, you rest your tools beside you, the flint cool against your palm. You glance at the sleeping forms curled near the hearth, their faces peaceful in the glow. The fire crackles softly, a lullaby that fills the cavern. You close your eyes, soot still clinging to your fingertips, sparks lingering in your memory. And with that memory, you drift into sleep, comforted by the knowledge that light and warmth are yours, at least for now. The night is deep, and the fire burns steady, but your eyes grow heavy. You rest your head against the folded hide, watching the flames dance higher, their orange tongues licking upward as if reaching for stories yet untold. Sleep hovers just beyond reach, tugging gently, coaxing you into its arms. The cave, with all its dampness and draughts, begins to blur into a different kind of world, the world of dreams. Archaeological evidence shows that firelight was not just a tool of survival but a canvas for imagination. The flickering glow painted shapes on stone walls, shapes that could inspire tales, visions, and perhaps even the earliest myths. Researchers widely agree that people likely drifted into sleep while staring at those shapes, their minds weaving them into stories. Tonight, as you gaze at the shifting shadows, you feel the pull of that ancient habit. The flames curl into figures, a deer bounding across rock, a hunter raising his spear, a bird stretching its wings. The images are not real, yet they feel alive, moving in rhythm with the crackle. You blink slowly, eyelids heavy, and those shadows seep into your thoughts. A child beside you murmurs in his sleep, words indistinct but musical, as though he too dreams of the fire's visions. You might be surprised to learn that modern studies suggest firelight induces a trance-like state, slowing heart rate and encouraging relaxation. This could explain why our ancestors often sat long into the night, gazing at flames even after the day's work was done. Sleep did not come all at once. It arrived gradually, carried on the tide of flickering light. Tonight, you feel that same slow drift, each breath heavier, each thought softer. What often escapes modern imagination is how dreams themselves may have been shaped by firelight. Some scholars propose that myths of animals, spirits, and ancestors could have sprung from these blurred half-sleep states. You watch the shadow of a bison on the wall, enormous and lumbering, and you wonder, is this memory of a hunt or the birth of a legend? Experts remain divided on whether dreams were viewed as mere fancy or as messages from unseen realms, but here, with the cave wrapped in smoke and flame, the line between real and unreal blurs easily. You shift on your bedding, pulling the hide tighter around your shoulders. The warmth from the fire reaches your cheeks, while your back still tingles with cold from the stone floor. This contrast is sharp, yet it adds to the drowsiness. Your body yearns for full heat but settles for enough. In the half-sleep haze, you can hear every detail more acutely. The fire's hiss, the sigh of a neighbor, the slow drip of water in the distance. Each sound weaves itself into your drifting mind, becoming threads in the fabric of dream. Curiously, some caves reveal soot marks not only on hearths but also high on walls, suggesting that torches were carried deep into the darkness. Imagine following that light, shadows leaping on every surface, dreams already bleeding into waking vision. Perhaps after long nights of fire-gazing, groups ventured inward, carrying their half-dreams into the depths, painting them as animals, symbols, and handprints. The boundary between dream and ritual may have been as thin as the smoke curling above you now. The group around you begins to quiet further, voices fading, breaths deepening. One by one, bodies surrender to exhaustion. A mother hums once, softly, to soothe a restless child, then falls silent as her own breathing slows. The hunters snore gently, shoulders rising and falling in rhythm. The cave itself grows hushed, save for the fire's steady whisper. You feel yourself sinking into that hush, your thoughts dissolving like embers into ash. But dreams come quickly here. In the glow, you see yourself walking across snowy plains, guided by a fire that hovers in the air. It dances ahead of you, always just out of reach. Behind you, the cave recedes into darkness, and ahead, strange shapes rise, part beast, part human, their outlines flickering like smoke. They whisper in voices that sound like crackling wood. You cannot understand their words, yet you feel their meaning deep in your chest. Survive. Keep walking. Do not stop. You stir, halfway awake, the dream still clinging. The fire crackles, throwing sparks that mimic the dream's phantom flames. You wonder briefly if those ancient whispers were only in your mind or if others, long before you, heard them too. Perhaps all who stare at fire hear the same voices eventually. Perhaps fire is a doorway, not just to warmth but to something deeper. Some researchers suggest that these dreamlike states around the hearth may have encouraged creativity, planning, and even the growth of language. In the relaxed haze, ideas might flow more freely, stories form more richly. There is still debate about how central fire was to the birth of human imagination. But here, wrapped in furs and smoke, it feels obvious. The fire is not only survival, it is inspiration. The night stretches on, and your body finally surrenders. Sleep takes you fully, though dreams continue. You see hunts that have not yet happened, faces of ancestors you've never met, creatures too large to exist. The fire blazes in every vision, always at the center, always the guide. Your breathing slows, your muscles unclench, and for the first time in days, you feel not just alive but resting. When dawn finally filters weakly into the cave, you stir again. The fire has dimmed, reduced to glowing embers, but it is still alive. You rub your eyes, heavy with dreams, and sit up slowly. Around you, others wake as well, stretching, yawning, murmuring softly. Their faces look calmer, as though the night gave more than rest. It gave stories, visions, perhaps even hope. You glance at the soot-dark ceiling, at the shadows that fade as daylight creeps in. Last night, those shadows were spirits, beasts, dreams. Today, they are only marks of smoke, and yet, you know that tonight, they will live again, reborn in the fire's glow. You breathe deeply, savoring the faint warmth still clinging to your skin. Dreams by firelight have carried you through another night, stitching imagination into survival. In this cave, in this winter, you live not only by breath and bone but also by story. And perhaps, you think, that is what makes survival human. The night is uneasy. Though the bedding is thick and the fire burns well, you lie awake, ears straining against the silence between crackles. Something stirs outside. At first it is faint, the crunch of snow beneath paws, the long exhale of an animal moving against the wind. Then it grows clearer, a howl, low, mournful, carrying through the forest and slipping into the cave like a knife. Your breath catches. Archaeological evidence shows that wolves, cave lions, and even cave bears once roamed the same landscapes as humans during the Ice Age. Their bones have been found in the very caves where people once sheltered, sometimes in layers that suggest alternating use. One thing is certain, these predators were not myths. They were neighbors, rivals, and threats. Tonight, as you press closer to the fire, you feel that reality in your marrow. The group shifts uneasily, eyes glinting in the firelight. A hunter raises his head, listening intently. Another places a hand on his spear, the stone tip gleaming faintly. The children burrow deeper under hides, their small bodies trembling. The air in the cavern thickens with tension, every breath shallow, as though even exhaling too loudly might invite danger closer. You might be surprised to learn that wolves were not always enemies. Some researchers suggest that early humans and wolves occasionally benefited from each other's presence, scavenging kills, alerting each other to dangers, even forming the earliest bonds that would later lead to domestication. Still, on a night like this, the sound of a howl is not comfort. It is hunger given voice, echoing through the trees. The howls multiply, first one, then another, until the night is threaded with a chorus of cries. They rise and fall like waves, closer, then farther, weaving around the cave as if circling. You clutch your hide tighter, the fur prickling against your skin. The fire seems smaller now, fragile against such voices. Shadows leap higher on the walls, as though the beasts themselves have crept inside, prowling along the stone. Some experts argue that fear of predators may have shaped the placement of hearths near cave entrances. Fires burning at the mouth created both warmth and deterrence, the scent of smoke warning animals to keep their distance. But others believe predators grew accustomed to such signals, bold enough to test the edge of human settlements regardless. The debate continues, but tonight you lean toward the latter. The howls feel too confident, too close. A crack in the distance startles everyone, a branch snapping under weight. You imagine glowing eyes at the tree line, watching, waiting for weakness. You grip a piece of wood, its end charred and glowing, ready to swing if needed. Fire is not only warmth, it is weapon. The hunters stir, spears in hand, silent but steady. Every muscle is tense, every ear straining. The children are hushed now, their fear deeper than tears. Curiously, some cave sites contain claw marks high on walls, likely left by bears rearing to their full height. Such evidence reminds you that predators were not just outside. Sometimes they claimed the very caves humans sought. Imagine finding such a beast already inside, its massive bulk filling the darkness. Tonight you thank whatever chance spared you that fate, even as the wolves outside keep singing their hunger. The minutes crawl like hours. The fire pops, sending sparks upward, and you flinch at the sound. The hunters exchange glances, silent communication born of long practice. Do you wait? Do you risk venturing outside? The storm has quieted, leaving only cold and predators. The choice is no choice at all. You remain, crouched in firelight, praying the beasts lose interest. Your mind drifts, unbidden, to the balance of power. Humans are clever, yes, but wolves are many, fast and relentless. There is still debate about when humans truly gained dominance over such predators. Was it fire that tipped the scales? Spears? Numbers? Or was it simply persistence, the refusal to yield despite fear? In moments like this, huddled and trembling, it hardly feels like dominance at all. Survival seems fragile, a bargain renewed each night. The howls fade slowly, drifting farther into the distance. Relief trickles into the cavern, though no one relaxes fully. The hunters keep their spears close, and you keep your grip on the glowing branch. For a long while, the only sounds are crackling wood and cautious breaths. Finally, one child lets out a soft whimper, and her mother soothes her with a hum. The spell of fear breaks, though uneasily. You lean back against the wall, heart still hammering. The cold stone grounds you, reminding you that danger has passed for now. Your body aches with exhaustion, but sleep does not come easily after such a night. Every sound feels sharper, every shadow suspicious. You stare at the fire, willing it to burn brighter, stronger, as though flame alone could keep the world at bay. What often goes unnoticed is how these shared dangers forged deep bonds among people. Facing predators together demanded trust, demanded that no one falter. Perhaps that is why stories of beasts became central to human culture, not only as warnings but as symbols of unity. Tonight, the wolves have left more than fear. They have left a reminder that you are not alone. You fight as a group, you endure as a group, and that truth is stronger than any fang or claw. Hours later, when dawn's pale light begins to seep into the cave, the fear loosens its grip. The hunters relax their spears, the mothers loosen their hold on children, and the air feels lighter. You exhale deeply, your chest aching from the weight of vigilance. Outside, the forest waits, indifferent to your relief. The wolves will return another night, perhaps bolder, perhaps hungrier. But for now, you have survived their song. You close your eyes briefly, though you remain sitting upright, too wary to fully rest. Sleep comes in fragments, shallow and restless. Yet even these fragments are enough. You are alive. The fire still burns. The predators have not breached the stone. Winter is far from over, but this night, at least, has been endured. The night after, the wolves feels quieter, though the silence is not quite comforting. Everyone is still on edge, glancing often toward the cave mouth, their movements sharp with memory. To soothe the unease, someone begins to work with their hands, and soon the scraping sound fills the chamber bone against stone, a rhythm steady and purposeful. Excavations of Paleolithic sites reveal carved antlers, bone needles, and small figurines, some functional, others purely symbolic. Archaeologists have found grooves etched into reindeer antlers, charms fashioned from mammoth ivory, even pendants shaped like teeth. One thing we know for certain is that bone was more than refuse. It was material for art, ritual, and comfort. Tonight, as you watch the hunter carve, you realize such work is not distraction. It is survival for the mind as much as for the body. He sits close to the fire, a shard of antler in his hands, and scrapes it carefully with a flint blade. Tiny curls of bone dust drift into the smoke, sparkling briefly before vanishing. The sound is gentle, hypnotic like the rasp of a lullaby. Children lean close, fascinated by the shape slowly emerging. Not a spear point or knife handle this time, but something smaller, less practical, a charm. You might be surprised to learn that some of these carvings were worn as pendants, suspended on cords of sinew or plant fiber. Others were left near hearths or buried in corners of caves. Were they decorations, toys, talismans? The debate continues, but here, as the figure takes shape in firelight, it feels like a prayer carved into bone. A prayer for safety, for fortune, for warmth that does not fail. The charm grows clearer. A small animal, perhaps a bird, its wings etched with shallow lines. The hunter holds it up, showing it to the children, who gasp softly. Their eyes shine, reflections of flame caught in curiosity. One child reaches for it, fingers brushing the grooves, and smiles. For a moment, the fear of wolves fades, replaced by the wonder of creation. Curiously, some bone carvings found in caves bear traces of red ochre, suggesting they were painted or dusted with color. Imagine grinding stone into powder, mixing it with fat, and rubbing it into carved lines until they glow crimson in firelight. Perhaps tonight, if ochre were at hand, the charm in your cave would glow too, a splash of color against winter's monotony. You settle back, watching as more people begin to carve. A woman sharpens a fragment of bone into a needle, testing its point against her thumb. Another scrapes a piece of ivory, humming softly as she works. The sound of tools against bone fills the air, mingling with the fire's crackle and the steady drip of water in the background. The cave becomes not only shelter but workshop, a place where fear transforms into focus. There is still debate among scholars about whether these charms were purely symbolic or whether they served as early forms of ritual magic. Did people believe a carved bird could protect them from predators? Or was it simply a token of beauty in a bleak world? Watching the way children clutch the new charm, their small hands stroking its surface as if drawing comfort, you suspect both are true. Objects carry power when belief clings to them. The hunter ties the charm to a strip of sinew and hangs it near the hearth. The firelight catches it, casting a small bird-like shadow on the wall. Everyone gazes at it for a moment, silent. You feel the weight of that silence. It is reverence, not emptiness. For this night at least, the carved figure becomes a guardian, a companion beyond the fire. Later, as the group settles into bedding, you notice others holding their own small creations. A child clutches a smoothed pebble, etched with scratches. An elder fingers a carved bone, its surface polished from years of touch. These objects may not ward off wolves, but they soothe restless hearts. And sometimes, perhaps, that is the same thing. You lie back, staring at the soot-stained ceiling, the charm's shadow flickering above you. The fire hums, the carvings glimmer, and your mind drifts. Perhaps long after you are gone, someone will find these bones, puzzled by their purpose. Will they call them art? Ritual? Survival? They cannot know the feeling you know now, that in the midst of fear and hunger, shaping bone into meaning is as vital as breath. As your eyes grow heavy, you listen to the rasp of carving continue faintly in the dark, steady as a heartbeat. It lulls you, carrying you into sleep. The charm watches over you, silent but present, as the cave dreams with you through another night. The morning after the carving is different. The air in the cave feels lighter, as if the little charm has lifted some of the heaviness from everyone's chest. Children wake first, tumbling over bedding hides with restless energy. Their laughter bounces off the stone walls, echoing like tiny bells in a cathedral. The sound startles you at first, too bright, too joyful in such a bleak winter, but soon you feel your lips curve into a smile. Even here, in a cavern thick with smoke and dampness, joy finds a way. Archaeological evidence from Upper Paleolithic sites shows traces of small footprints near hearths, pressed into layers of ash and soil. These are thought to be children's, their steps frozen in time, proof that little ones played even in the midst of harsh conditions. Researchers widely agree that play was not just distraction but learning, practice for the skills of survival. And now, as you watch the children dash across the hides, you see that truth alive in front of you. One boy wraps himself in a fur like a cape, growling and pretending to be a wolf. The others shriek and scatter, only to circle back, their faces glowing in the firelight. Their bare feet slap against stone, their voices high and clear. The adults watch with indulgent smiles, though some hush them softly. Predators may not be far after all. Yet no one stops them completely. Play is too precious to silence entirely. You might be surprised to learn that some archaeologists have uncovered bone whistles, small instruments thought to be children's toys. These fragments hint that music and play existed long before written history. Perhaps in caves like this, children blew soft notes, filling the air with sound as innocent as their laughter now. The presence of such objects suggests that survival was never only about endurance, it was also about moments of delight. Still, the laughter carries another purpose. It reassures the adults. After nights haunted by howls, hearing children's giggles is proof that life continues, that fear has not stolen everything. Even the elders, weary from coughing, lift their heads to watch, their eyes softening. The sound wraps the cave in a gentler rhythm, masking the drip of water and the hiss of smoke. Experts remain divided on whether children were sheltered from hardship or included in survival tasks from the start. Some argue that play itself was training, sharpening reflexes, and teaching group cooperation. Others suggest that the youngest were kept near the hearth, guarded until they were strong enough to join the hunt. Watching now, you see both. Children tumbling with imaginary spears, learning the shapes of danger through laughter, while mothers keep a watchful eye, ready to pull them close at any real threat. The boy with the fur cape leaps across the bedding, nearly toppling into the fire before his father snatches him back with a laugh. The child squeals, unbothered, wriggling to escape. Soon he is back at it again, his shrieks echoing down the cavern. The sound feels almost shocking in its brightness, a flare of sunlight piercing winter's gloom. Curiously, there are handprints on cave walls, some small enough to have belonged to children. Red, black, ochre outlines pressed against stone, frozen for thousands of years. Were they part of ritual, or simply a child's version of scribbling on the walls? Scholars still debate, but when you see the children now, their palms pressed into ash, smearing streaks onto stone, you can imagine how such prints began. Not as solemn ceremonies at first, perhaps, but as play. The fire crackles, and one girl dances around it, her steps quick, her voice humming nonsense tunes. Others clap in rhythm, their small hands smacking hides with muffled beats. The sound is infectious, and soon even adults join in, tapping fingers against stone, adding low voices to the rhythm. The cavern fills with a kind of music, not planned, not written, but born of joy. For a moment, winter is forgotten. What often goes unspoken is how such joy could be a tool of survival itself. Laughter relieves fear, strengthens bonds, and restores energy. In bleak times, it reminds people why they fight to live another day. Tonight, you feel that truth deeply. The laughter of children is more than noise. It is a promise that life continues, that despair has not won. As evening falls, the children finally grow tired. They collapse onto the bedding, flushed and glowing, still giggling in whispers. Parents tuck hides around them, smoothing hair from their faces. The cave quiets again, but the echoes of laughter linger in your ears, soothing you like a lullaby. The firelight flickers across their sleeping forms, their small chests rising and falling steadily. There is still discussion among researchers about the role of childhood in prehistoric society. Was it a protected stage of life, or did necessity thrust children quickly into adult roles? Watching the little ones sleep, cheeks rosy from play, you sense that perhaps both were true. Childhood was fragile, fleeting, but within it lay the seeds of resilience. Even in caves, even in freezing winters, children found ways to be children. You lie down, drawing your hide tighter around your shoulders. Your body aches from the day's labors, but your heart feels lighter. The memory of laughter lingers, mingling with the crackle of the fire. You close your eyes, imagining those small footprints pressed into cave floors thousands of years ago, proof that joy has always walked alongside fear. And with that thought, you drift into sleep, the echoes of children's voices still chasing away the darkness. The day after the children's laughter, the cave feels changed. Spirits are lighter, but something deeper stirs in the shadows. While you add branches to the fire, your eyes drift toward the walls, where flickering light reveals strange markings. At first, they look like nothing more than stains, smudges of soot, irregular streaks. But when the flames leap higher, patterns emerge. The outlines of animals, the shapes of hands, a silent gallery that has waited in darkness for who knows how long. Archaeological discoveries have revealed painted caves stretching across Europe, Asia, and beyond Chauvet, Lascaux, Altamira. These images date back tens of thousands of years. It is well established that such paintings often depicted animals: bison, mammoth, horses, even lions. Some are astonishingly detailed, showing motion and shadow as if captured in a photograph of pigment. Others are simple outlines, raw but powerful. Here, in your cavern, you see similar echoes. Red ochre smeared into the figure of a deer, black lines tracing the curve of a bison's back. The sight stills you. It is one thing to feel the presence of those who came before in soot stains or broken tools. It is another to see their visions, their hands reaching across time. You trace the lines with your gaze, your chest tightening. Who painted these? What did they hope for? What did they fear? You might be surprised to learn that hand stencils, created by blowing pigment around an outstretched palm, are some of the most common markings found in such caves. Some scholars believe they marked identity, I was here. Others think they were part of rituals, symbolic acts connecting people to stone and spirit alike. Tonight, as you stare at the faded outlines on your wall, you feel both possibilities pressing on you. A child notices your gaze and joins you, pointing eagerly. Bison, she whispers, though her word is barely formed, her voice high with wonder. Others gather too, their eyes widening as they follow the shapes. Soon the fire is stoked brighter, illuminating more of the wall. The cavern itself transforms into a gallery, each surface alive with creatures and symbols. The hunters murmur softly, recognizing the curve of a spear in one figure's hand, the arc of horns in another. There is still debate among researchers about why these paintings were made. Were they hunting magic, meant to ensure success by capturing animals in pigment before capturing them in flesh? Were they storytelling, a record of hunts past? Or were they spiritual visions, glimpses of a world beyond the visible? Theories abound, but certainty remains elusive. Watching now, you realize the answer may be all of these at once. Curiously, some paintings are found deep within cave systems, far from living areas. This suggests deliberate journeys into darkness, carrying torches, painting in secret chambers. Perhaps your ancestors in this cavern did the same, venturing inward with fire and pigment, leaving behind whispers you now glimpse in the flicker of flame. To imagine them crawling into narrow passages, pressing hands to stone, painting animals that would outlast them, it stirs awe in your chest. One of the elders speaks softly, her voice low but steady. She tells of ancestors who painted animals to call their spirits close, to honor them, and to ask for their return. Her words flow like the fire itself, glowing and alive. The children lean in, eyes wide, and even the hunters, usually so stoic, nod as though they too feel the truth in her tale. Whether fact or belief hardly matters. The story makes the cave feel warmer, more alive. The firelight continues to animate the walls. Shadows of painted deer leap as flames dance, bison appear to charge, hands seem to reach outward. The line between pigment and shadow blurs, until the cave itself seems to breathe with hidden life. You blink slowly, mesmerized, as though slipping into that same dreamlike trance you felt nights before. Perhaps the artists wanted this exact effect to let fire turn paint into motion, stone into living memory. You glance at the floor near the walls, noticing faint scraps of red dust in cracks between stones. Ochre, perhaps, crumbled from some ancient painting kit. Imagine grinding the mineral into powder, mixing it with fat or spit, pressing it into stone with fingers hardened by cold. Each line would have taken patience, each symbol intention. And now, thousands of years later, you sit here, eyes wide, still listening to what those hands once said. What often goes unnoticed is the courage it took to paint at all. Supplies were scarce, time was precious. To use effort and resources for art instead of pure survival speaks to something beyond instinct. It speaks to imagination, to the need for meaning. Tonight, watching your companions stare at the walls, you realize that survival alone is not enough. People need stories, symbols, beauty, even in the harshest winters. The children soon imitate what they see. They press ash-darkened hands onto the floor, leaving smudges in rough shapes. They laugh as they compare, holding palms against each other to see who is bigger. The adults smile, indulgent, though some look away quickly, perhaps uneasy at the act of copying sacred markings. Still, no one stops them. The instinct to mark, to leave a trace, is too strong. Experts remain divided on whether such cave art was communal, with many contributing, or reserved for a select few, the shamans, perhaps those thought to walk between worlds. In your cavern, the answer feels closer to the first. Every gaze lingers on the walls, every hand twitches with the desire to add its own mark. Perhaps, one night, someone will. Perhaps you will. As darkness deepens, the group settles again. The paintings glow faintly in the dying firelight, creatures shifting one last time before fading into stillness. You lie back on your hide, eyes fixed on the bison's curve, the handprints outlined. Sleep pulls you slowly, but even as your eyes close, you carry the images inward. They follow you into dreams, as though the painted spirits have stepped down from stone to walk with you in sleep. The cave, once only stone and smoke, is now also story, and that makes the night feel a little less cold. You wake to a sting on your cheeks and the sharp bite of air in your lungs. The fire is still alive, but the cavern feels colder than ever. Each breath you exhale drifts upward in a pale cloud, so thick it looks like smoke. When you run your hand across your beard, you find tiny crystals clinging there, frost woven into the hairs, sharp enough to sparkle in the dim firelight. Even your eyelashes feel heavy, weighed down by ice. Archaeological evidence shows that Ice Age winters reached ferocities few modern people can imagine, with average temperatures plunging well below freezing. It is well established that people living in caves during these seasons faced nights where even the hearth's glow was not enough to banish the chill. Excavated remains of hearths layered with ashes, sometimes renewed night after night, prove the constant battle against cold. This morning, you feel that same battle pressing against your skin. The group stirs slowly. Children cough, pulling hides closer around their faces. One elder mutters in irritation, his hands trembling as he tries to rekindle the fire with new branches. The crackle is softer today, the flames reluctant, as though they too feel the weight of frost. You shuffle closer, pressing your palms against the stones around the hearth. They are warm, but only faintly, as if the fire itself is weary. What often goes unnoticed is how frost collects not only on bodies but also on stone walls. The cavern glitters faintly now, small crystals forming in cracks and crevices, glowing when struck by stray beams of light from the entrance. It's strangely beautiful, a frozen cathedral, yet deadly all the same. If the fire falters even for an hour, those crystals will creep onto your skin, draining heat until nothing remains. You might be surprised to learn that some researchers argue our ancestors may have worn layered fur masks, covering even eyelashes and brows to protect against such frost. There are no surviving examples. Of course, fur and leather rot too easily, but depictions on carved figurines hint at heavy wrappings across faces. You imagine tying scraps of hide across your nose, your breath freezing instantly against the fabric, leaving it stiff with ice. Primitive, but better than bare skin in this killing air. The hunters rise, grumbling, their joints stiff. They rub their arms, stamping their feet, but soon they move toward the entrance. Food must still be found, no matter the cold. Their breath plumes like smoke as they vanish into the pale morning. The rest of you huddle nearer the hearth. A woman adds fat to the fire, and the flames leap a little higher, spreading warmth in fragile waves. You lean close, face tingling as heat collides with frost. The sensation is painful, but it is the pain of returning circulation, a relief, not a wound. Experts remain divided on how people endured such extremes without permanent structures. Some propose they built windbreaks inside caves with stacked stones or hides, creating smaller chambers where warmth could be trapped. Others argue they relied primarily on fire and constant movement, sleeping in short cycles and never truly resting. Watching your group now, shifting restlessly, you suspect the truth lies somewhere in between. Adaptation was not one method, but anything that worked, even for a single night. You wrap your hide tighter and glance at your companions. Their faces gleam with condensation from breath, each droplet freezing almost as soon as it appears. The children's cheeks are red, raw from cold, yet they smile faintly as they huddle together, sharing warmth. You press closer too, and soon the group is one tangled heap of hides and limbs. Against the frost, bodies are as essential as fire. Curiously, in some preserved Ice Age burials, traces of fur clothing have been found woven with sinew, showing that people stitched not just capes but layered garments. Some even suggest padding hides with grasses for insulation. You wonder now if the hides around you hold such secrets, if layers of dried plants rustle softly inside, hidden but life-saving. Each crackle of grass inside a pelt is a whisper of ingenuity. The day crawls forward. The hunters return empty-handed, their faces grim, their limbs shaking from cold. No tracks, no movement perhaps. The animals, too, huddle in their dens, unwilling to face the frost. The disappointment weighs heavy. Still, you feed the fire with what wood remains, grateful at least for warmth, if not food. Hunger gnaws, but the cold presses harder. Fire becomes your meal, your protection, your only certainty. There is still discussion among scholars about whether caves truly provided warmth or only lessened the cold's bite. Some argue they were chosen more for safety from wind and predators than for comfort. Tonight, as frost clings stubbornly to your beard and smoke stings your lungs, you understand. The cave does not banish winter, it only dulls its teeth. But sometimes dull teeth are enough. As night falls, the frost grows sharper. You wake often, shifting to ease the ache in your limbs. Each time, your breath clouds the air, your eyelashes crusted with ice. You wipe them carefully, unwilling to lose sight in this treacherous season. Around you, others stir too, their movements restless, their sleep fractured. Yet no one complains. Survival is not comfort, it is endurance, breath after breath. You press closer to the fire, hands outstretched, feeling the sting of thawing skin. Sparks leap upward, catching the soot-stained ceiling, then vanish into the dark. For a moment, you think of the stars outside, hidden by frost, unseen from within the cave. The fire is your constellation now, each spark a reminder that light still exists in the world. Finally, exhaustion wins. You close your eyes, the fur rough against your cheek, your beard still stiff with frost. Sleep is shallow, broken by shivers, but it comes. And as you drift, you whisper a silent plea to the fire. Live until morning. If it does, so will you. The fire survives the night, but only barely. By the time you rise, its heart is a pool of dull red coals, barely glowing beneath the ash. Smoke lingers like a stubborn ghost, drifting upward toward the soot-stained ceiling. You move slowly, your joints stiff with cold, and feed the embers a sliver of wood. At first, nothing happens. Then, a faint orange blush spreads, growing into fragile tongues of flame. The relief is sharp, almost dizzying. Archaeological evidence shows that prehistoric people relied not only on open fires but also on smaller, portable sources of light, lamps carved from stone or bone, filled with animal fat and fitted with moss or plant fibers for wicks. It is well established that such lamps, discovered at sites in France and Spain, date back more than 15,000 years. Tonight, you prepare to follow the same practice, coaxing light not only from firewood but from fat, that most precious of winter resources. You kneel near the hearth, shaping a shallow bowl from a smooth stone. Into it, you press a lump of animal fat, soft and greasy, its smell pungent even before it burns. A strip of moss serves as the wick, soaking up the fat until it glistens. When you lean close with a glowing ember, the wick flares, sputters, then steadies into a dim flame. Its light is pale compared to the fire's roar, but steady, gentler, less greedy for fuel. What often goes unmentioned is how such lamps offered more than light. They were also tools for exploration. Torches burned fast and smoky, but fat lamps could last for hours, glowing like stars held in your hand. Some researchers suggest that cave paintings deep underground were illuminated by just such flames. As you watch the tiny glows spread across the wall, it is easy to imagine ancient artists carrying them into darkness, painting by flickering points of grease-fed fire. You might be surprised to learn that residues from these lamps sometimes contain traces of herbs or resins, perhaps added for scent or for a brighter flame. Imagine mixing pine resin into fat, watching the smoke grow sharper, the flame steadier. Tonight, though, you have only fat, and its smell is strong, musky, clinging to the air. It is not pleasant, but you do not mind. The light it offers is worth every acrid breath. The children are the first to notice. They gather around, eyes wide, pointing at the small lamp as though it is magic. Their faces glow softly, shadows gentle on their cheeks. One girl whispers that it looks like a captured star. You smile at the thought, charmed despite your fatigue. Perhaps that is exactly what such lamps were meant to be. Stars brought inside, companions for the darkest nights. Curiously, some lamps were decorated, carved with lines or shapes, even though such ornament had no effect on their function. This hints at something beyond utility, an aesthetic impulse, a desire to bring beauty into necessity. As you look at your own rough lamp, you run your finger along its edge, tempted to scratch a mark into it. Not for function, but for memory, for meaning. Experts remain divided on whether fat lamps were shared communally or whether individuals kept their own. Some argue that each person may have carried one during forays into the cave, while others suggest they were precious, too costly to multiply. In your group, the decision is simple. The lamp sits at the center, its glow adding to the fire's light, its steadiness reassuring everyone. One flame belongs to all. As night deepens, the lamp continues to burn, steady and calm. You find yourself staring at it, lulled by the small flame's rhythm. Unlike the fire, it does not crackle or leap. It only glows, patient and enduring. That patience seeps into you. Your breathing slows, your shoulders unclench. The smoke rises thinly, carrying the smell of fat, but it seems softer than the fire's thick haze. You feel calmer, as though the lamp's flame burns directly into your thoughts, quieting them. The children drift to sleep first, lulled by the gentle glow. The hunters sharpen tools in silence, their flints clicking softly. A mother hums under her breath, rocking an infant whose tiny face glimmers in the lamplight. The cavern becomes less a shelter and more a home, lit by this delicate flame. What often escapes notice is how such lamps may have altered the very rhythm of life. With steady light, people were no longer bound strictly to daylight. Work could continue, stories could be told, rituals could unfold long after the sun had set. Some scholars argue that fat lamps extended human consciousness into the night, carving out new hours for imagination and thought. Watching now, you sense the truth of it. Time feels longer, softer, filled with possibility. You lean back, eyes heavy, watching shadows shift. The flame wavers once, then steadies again, a loyal companion. Your thoughts wander back to the painted walls, to the wolves outside, to the laughter of children. Each memory glows in the lamplight, softer than in the fire's harsh blaze. Perhaps that is the lamp's greatest gift. It makes everything gentler. Eventually, the wick burns low. The flame shrinks, curling inward, and the children stir in their sleep as the light fades. You reach for the lamp, careful fingers pinching the wick to extinguish it. The smoke that rises is sharp, but brief. Darkness deepens again, broken only by the hearth's glow. Yet you feel no fear. The memory of the lamp lingers, a promise that tomorrow night you can summon a star once more. You curl beneath your hide, warmth seeping slowly into your bones. The cave hums with quiet breaths. The fire murmurs faintly, and your mind drifts towards sleep. The fat lamp has left its mark not on the walls, but on your thoughts. A small flame, a steady glow, enough to make winter less cruel. The next evening comes heavy and long. Snow piles at the cave entrance, muting the outside world, while inside, the fire flickers lazily. The group sits close, shoulders touching, waiting for warmth and for something to break the silence. Then one of the elders clears his throat, his voice rough but steady. The others quiet at once. The firelight catches the wrinkles on his face, each line carved deep, as if shaped by winters past. He begins to speak, not commands, not warnings, but stories. Archaeological finds remind us that oral traditions likely stretch back tens of thousands of years. It is well established that long before writing, knowledge passed from mouth to ear, generation to generation. Firelit caves became classrooms, theatres, and temples all at once. Tonight, as you listen, you feel yourself stepping into that same current of human history, carried by words as old as breath. The elder's tale begins with a hunt. He describes a great bison, its hooves pounding like thunder, its breath steaming in the air. The hunters chase it across snowfields, their spears glinting in the pale Sunday. His voice deepens when he speaks of the throw, the impact, the triumphant shout. Children lean forward, eyes wide, hands gripping hides as though they too held spears. Adults nod, remembering hunts of their own. The cave itself seems to listen, the echoes catching every word and carrying it deeper. What often escapes modern imagination is how such stories were more than entertainment. They were maps of memory, teaching younger listeners where to find game, when to move camp, which dangers to avoid. Some researchers argue that narrative itself evolved to preserve survival knowledge in a form people could remember. As the elder describes the path the bison took, you realize he is not just telling a tale, he is giving directions, a guide woven into words. You might be surprised to learn that studies of contemporary hunter-gatherer groups show that skilled storytellers often hold special status. They are valued not for their strength, but for their ability to carry the group's history and lessons. Perhaps in your cave, too, this elder is more than just an old man, he is a library, a bridge between past and present. The story shifts. The bison hunt gives way to a tale of ancestors. He speaks of those who once lived in the cave before you, their fires burning where yours now glows. He tells of spirits who walk in the smoke, guiding hunters, protecting children, warning of dangers in dreams. His voice slows, rhythmic, almost like chanting. The younger ones huddle closer, half frightened, half enchanted. Shadows leap on the walls, shaped into forms that match his words, spirits dancing, animals charging, hands reaching. Experts remain divided on whether such tales were meant to be literal beliefs or symbolic teaching. Did people truly think spirits moved in the fire, or was it metaphor for unseen truths? Perhaps both. Tonight, you cannot decide. The elder's voice is so steady, so full of conviction, that you feel the spirits near, whispering just beyond your hearing. Curiously, archaeologists have found flutes made from bird bones in caves, some dating back more than 30,000 years. The presence of music alongside stories suggests that evenings like this may have been woven with melody as well as words. Tonight, no flute plays, but the elder's voice carries rhythm enough, his phrases rising and falling like song. The fire cracks in time with his words, each pop a drumbeat punctuating the tale. Children gasp when he describes a spirit walking through snow without leaving footprints. Adults murmur agreement when he speaks of ancestors watching from the stars. The story stretches long, winding like a river, carrying everyone with it. Even your own breathing slows, matched to his cadence. You feel yourself sinking, lulled by the flow of words, caught between waking and dreaming. What often goes unspoken is how these tales created more than knowledge, they created belonging. To hear the same stories night after night was to share an identity, to know that you were part of something larger than yourself. Tonight, listening to the elder's voice echo against the stone, you feel bound not only to the people beside you, but to the countless others who once listened in other caves, under other stars. The tale ends not with triumph, but with a warning. Always honor the fire, for it is both gift and danger. Always respect the animals, for they give their lives so you may live. Always listen to the stone, for it remembers what you forget. His voice fades, and silence settles over the group. The fire glows steadily, as though nodding in agreement. There is still debate among scholars about whether such oral traditions were fixed, repeated word for word, or whether each telling shifted, molded by the speaker. Watching tonight, you sense the latter. The elder's tale may have been told many times, but this version is shaped by the wolves that howled last night, the deer that was brought home days ago, the fear and hope living in this very winter. Stories are never still. They change as the fire changes. When the elder finishes, a hush lingers. Then a child giggles softly, breaking the spell. The group exhales together, tension released, smiles breaking across tired faces. Someone adds another branch to the fire, and the flames leap high again, casting fresh shadows on the painted walls. The elder leans back, eyes closed, his duty done for the night. You lie down, pulling your hide close, your mind still humming with his words. Images of bison and spirits drift across your thoughts as sleep creeps in. You realize that tomorrow you may not recall every detail, but the rhythm will stay, the sense of connection will endure. And perhaps that is enough. Stories do not need to be perfect to be powerful. They only need to be told. The stories of last night linger in your ears even after the fire has faded to embers. Yet this morning, you are pulled sharply back into the body. Your chest feels tight, your throat raw. When you cough, it rattles low, leaving a bitter taste behind. Others stir as well, some sneezing, some groaning. The cave, protective though it is, has its own dangers. In winter, illness is a guest you cannot easily send away. Archaeological evidence suggests that respiratory diseases may have plagued groups living in smoke-filled shelters. Layers of soot found in hearths, along with traces of plant remains, hint at environments where lungs were constantly exposed. It is well established that smoke inhalation, poor ventilation, and close quarters created fertile ground for coughs, fevers, and weakness. Today, you feel that weight in every breath. A woman beside you wraps her infant more tightly, humming as the baby whimpers, congested. An elder coughs until his whole body shakes, then sags against the wall, exhausted. The fire warms you, but the smoke burns too. Survival is not only about food and warmth, it is about resisting the invisible frailties that strike from within. You might be surprised to learn that bundles of herbs, thyme, sage, or juniper have been discovered in some ancient sites, suggesting people used plants medicinally. Burned, they may have eased breathing or cleansed air. Others might have been chewed or brewed into weak teas. Tonight, as you cough, you wish for such remedies. Even a handful of dried leaves could feel like salvation. What often goes unnoticed is how illness reshapes the rhythm of the group. Hunters hesitate to leave when the weak are many. Caregivers spend hours tending to the sick instead of gathering food. Each cough drains not only lungs but also the energy of the entire band. You feel it now, in the way people move more slowly, how their eyes dart with quiet fear. Illness is not just discomfort, it is threat. Experts remain divided on how people interpreted such sickness. Some argue they saw it as natural consequence, a part of winter's cruelty. Others suggest they linked it to spirits, punishment for broken rituals or disrespect. Watching your group tonight, you suspect both. One elder mutters a chant under his breath, as though asking ancestors for mercy. Another simply tends the fire, practical and grim. Between spirit and science lies the truth. Sickness demands action no matter its source. Curiously, traces of honey and resin found in prehistoric containers hint that early people may have used them as salves or treatments. Honey's soothing properties, resin's antiseptic bite, they may have been discovered by accident, then remembered in lore. You imagine crushing resin into smoke, hoping it clears throats, or licking honey from a comb, letting it ease pain. Small comforts perhaps, but powerful when winter is merciless. You shift under your hide, pressing it closer around your body. The warmth helps, but your chest still aches. Around you, the cave fills with muffled sounds, sneezes, coughs, groans. Even laughter is subdued today. The children quieter, subdued by the heaviness in the air. The painted walls seem dimmer, the fire less vibrant. Illness steals not only breath but spirit. And yet, People endure. A woman chews bitter roots, then places them on a child's chest, murmuring softly. A hunter splashes cold water on his face, gasping as the shock clears his head. Each action is small, improvised, yet filled with stubborn hope. No consensus exists on how effective these remedies truly were, but their presence proves something vital. People refused to surrender. Even when lungs burned and fevers raged, they searched for ways to heal. As night falls, the fire is fed with extra fat, sending thicker smoke curling upward. Some believe it purifies, driving sickness away. You cough harder, yet you find comfort in the ritual. Action, even imperfect, feels stronger than despair. The elder chants again, voice steady, as though his words themselves are medicine. The cave hums with that rhythm, the fires crackle joining the prayer. You lie down, chest aching, eyes watering from smoke. The hide scratches against your skin, but its warmth is precious. You focus on the sound of breathing around you, uneven, yes, but present. Life persists, even in weakness. You close your eyes, whispering silently your own plea. Let this illness pass. Let the fire heal. Let the morning come. Sleep is shallow, broken by coughing fits, yet eventually it carries you. In dreams, the fire glows brighter, smoke gentler, your chest free. You wake often, but each time you find the hearth still burning, companions still alive, and that, in its own way, is enough. The cave is quiet, too quiet. No laughter tonight, no eager chatter around the fire. Hunger has a way of silencing even the liveliest voices. The hunters returned with empty hands, their faces drawn, their steps dragging. The last of the dried meat has been divided into thin strips, scarcely more than a taste on each tongue. You chew yours slowly, hoping to trick your stomach into believing more will follow. But the gnawing emptiness in your belly only sharpens. Archaeological remains tell this story in bones. At many Ice Age sites, scientists have found marks of starvation etched into skeletons, stunted growth in children, brittle ribs, teeth worn from grinding fibrous scraps. It is well established that winters often meant long stretches of scarcity, when meat was scarce and plants could not be gathered. Tonight, you are living that truth. The cave is not only cold and smoky, but filled with the hollow echo of hunger. The fire crackles faintly, but no one sits close. No songs rise. Instead, people curl into their hides, conserving energy, conserving hope. You feel your own thoughts slow, dulled by lack of food. Every movement feels heavier, as though the stone itself has fastened weights to your limbs. You might be surprised to learn that some groups stored food in pits dug into cave floors or tucked into frozen ground outside, wrapping meat in hide to keep it longer. But such stores never lasted the entire season, not with so many mouths to feed. Perhaps there were once supplies here too, but tonight the alcoves are empty, and the shelves of stone offer nothing but dust. What often goes unnoticed is how hunger changes not just bodies but tempers. A child whimpers softly, clutching his belly, and his mother hushes him quickly, but her voice cracks with irritation. Two hunters argue in whispers. One insists they should risk going farther tomorrow, even into predator lands. The other shakes his head, fearful that the risk outweighs the chance of meat. Hunger presses on everyone, turning patience brittle, fraying bonds. Experts remain divided on how groups handled famine. Some believe they shared every scrap equally, ensuring the survival of the many. Others argue that hunters or leaders might have taken larger shares, protecting those whose strength was most needed. Watching your group tonight, you see no clear answer. The meat was divided carefully, yet not without glances, hungry eyes measuring who received a little more, who chewed a little longer. Fairness and survival do not always walk hand in hand. Curiously, archaeological sites sometimes show evidence of marrow extraction on even the smallest bones, proof that nothing went to waste. Tonight, you see that desperation mirrored. One hunter cracks open an old deer bone long since dried, scraping its inside with a sharp stone. He licks the powder that crumbles out, grimacing at the bitter taste but swallowing anyway. Others watch silently, their eyes sharp with the same need. Hunger erases pride. The hours drag. The fire's warmth is no longer comfort, it is taunting, reminding you of the meals it once cooked. Your stomach growls so loudly, you fear it will wake the children. You press your hand against it, as if you can quiet the beast inside. The stone floor feels colder than usual, and the hides thinner. Without food, even warmth seems weaker. There is still debate about whether famine led to more extreme measures, whether some groups turned to roots, bark, or even worse. Some researchers point to evidence of gnaw marks on human bones, hinting at cannibalism in desperate times. Others argue such marks came from predators, not people. You shiver at the thought, unwilling to imagine your own group reaching that edge. Yet the silence tonight, heavy and brittle, makes you realize how thin that line might be. You curl tighter into your hide, closing your eyes, trying to drift into sleep to escape the ache. But hunger is louder than dreams. It scratches at your ribs, twists your gut, keeps you awake with its constant growl. Around you, others toss restlessly, sighing, shifting, unable to settle. Hunger is a thief of sleep as much as of strength. At last, exhaustion overpowers even emptiness. You drift into shallow slumber, filled with dreams of food berries staining your hands, fish glistening in streams, warm fat dripping from meat over flames. You reach, you taste, and then you wake, mouth dry, belly still hollow. The fire has burned low and the cave is silent, each sleeper lost in their own hungry dream. What often goes unspoken in polished histories is how many winters ended this way in silence, in hunger, in endurance tested night after night. Survival was not only about strength or skill, but about patience, about outlasting the emptiness until spring returned. Tonight, as you listen to the faint crackle of dying embers, you wonder if your group has enough patience left. The night stretches long, the hunger longer, but still you breathe, and sometimes, in winter, that alone is victory. Dawn comes, pale and weak, filtering through the snow-packed entrance like a ghost. You wake sluggishly, your stomach hollow, your limbs heavy as stone. Hunger has slowed everyone, but necessity demands movement. The hunters rise, muttering, wrapping hides tightly around their shoulders. Their faces are gaunt, eyes sunken with exhaustion, yet spears are lifted, stone points checked, sinew bindings tightened. The cave cannot feed you, the forest must. Archaeological evidence makes clear how much winter diets relied on hunting. Bones of reindeer, horse, and bison dominate Ice Age sites, often cracked for marrow or scorched by fire. It is well established that even small Hall's hares, birds, fish were vital to survival. Tonight, your band prepares for another attempt, even if the odds are bleak. You follow the hunters part way toward the entrance, feeling the bite of wind the moment the snow-blocked gap is widened. Air rushes in like a predator, sharp enough to sting your teeth. You clutch your hide closer, watching as they step into white silence. Their figures vanish quickly, swallowed by drifting snow. The sound of their boots fades, leaving only the echo of your own breathing. What often escapes notice is how dangerous hunting in such weather truly was. Tracks vanished almost instantly, covered by fresh flakes. Cold, stiffened fingers, slowed throws, dulled reflexes. Prey was scarce, predators bold. Some scholars propose that winter hunts were more ritual than practicality, undertaken with desperate hope rather than expectation. Watching the hunters vanish into the storm, you wonder if that theory holds truth. You might be surprised to learn that some groups crafted nets from sinew or woven plants to trap small game. Archaeological finds of twisted fibers suggest ingenuity far beyond simple spears. But here, with plants buried under snow and sinew too precious, such traps are not an option. The hunters carry only spears and hope, stepping into a world that offers little mercy. Back inside, the group waits. Waiting is its own burden, time stretching thin, nerves fraying. Children grow restless, tugging at hides, asking for food that does not exist. Mothers hush them gently, though their own eyes are weary. The elders sit silently, their breaths shallow, their gazes fixed on the fire as though willing it to last. The cave feels heavier than usual, weighted by absence. Curiously, some cave sites contain layers of bird bones, ptarmigan, ducks, indicating that small fowls were sometimes the difference between life and death. Imagine creeping to snowy clearings, startling birds into flight, then bringing them down with quick throws of stone. Tonight you hope for such luck, though you know the hunters long for larger prey. A bird feeds a family for a night, a reindeer feeds them for weeks. Hours pass. The fire shrinks. Wood is scarce, and no one wants to waste energy searching. You feed it small pieces, watching each log crumble too quickly. Smoke clings to your skin, but the warmth is thin, barely cutting the chill. You rub your hands together, though the sting of cold never truly leaves. Experts remain divided on how often winter hunts succeeded. Some argue that survival depended more on stored fat and dried meat than on daily luck. Others point to cut marks on bones, suggesting frequent kills, even in the coldest months. Tonight, as you wait, you think of both possibilities. Perhaps survival is always a gamble, the dice rolled each morning when hunters vanish into snow. At last, footsteps echo at the cave's mouth. Shapes emerge from the white blur, tired, bent, but carrying something. A small bundle dangles from one spear, a hare. Another man lifts a bird, feathers stiff with frost. Not much, but more than nothing. Relief ripples through the cave like fire catching dry wood. Children scramble forward, their eyes bright. Mothers sigh audibly, shoulders loosening. Even the elders smile faintly. The hare is skinned quickly, its thin body stretched near the fire. Fat drips onto flames, sizzling, sending up smoke that smells almost sweet. The bird is plucked, feathers floating like snow in the air. The meat is meager, hardly enough for all, but when divided into small strips, each person holds something. You chew slowly, savoring the warmth as it spreads down your throat. Hunger does not vanish, but it softens. What often goes unspoken is how victory, even small, renews hope. A single hare can shift despair into determination. Around the fire, voices rise again, quiet at first, then louder. A hunter jokes about the bird being stubborn, refusing to die until he cursed it. Laughter breaks through, thin but real. For a moment, you remember that survival is not only hunger and cold, it is also resilience, stubborn as the flame itself. Curiously, bones of hares and birds often show marks of careful roasting, not hasty devouring. This suggests a ritual of patience, perhaps a reminder that even scarcity must be honored. Tonight, you feel that patience yourself, holding each bite on your tongue, letting it linger as long as possible. There is still debate among researchers about whether small game hunting was considered less honorable than large kills. Some argue it was dismissed as women's or children's work, others that it was praised as clever necessity. In your cave, no such questions exist. Tonight, every scrap is blessing. The fire blazes brighter as the meal cooks, fueled by bones tossed into the flames. The smell fills the cavern, rich despite its smallness. You lean back, belly warmer than before, heart lighter. Outside, winter still roars, merciless and vast. But inside, there is meat, there is fire, there is laughter again. As you curl into your hide, you know hunger will return tomorrow. Yet for this night, you feel something rare. Contentment. The gamble of the hunt has paid enough to carry you forward. And in winter, sometimes carrying forward is all that matters. The fire is strong again tonight, fed by the bones of the hare and bird, yet the smell of roasting fat still lingers in the air. Your belly feels warmer than it has in days, but not full, never full. Hunger waits just beneath the surface, like a predator biding its time. Still, there is relief. The faint glow of contentment spreads through the group, and with it, a shift in rhythm. People begin to hum, clap, and let their voices rise together in song. Archaeological evidence shows that early humans made music tens of thousands of years ago. Flutes carved from bird bones, discovered in caves in Germany, date back over 35,000 years. It is well established that rhythm and melody are among the oldest threads of human culture. And tonight, in your cavern, you hear how those threads still weave survival into something more than endurance. It begins simply. A mother hums softly as she rocks her child. The tune is wordless, more vibration than melody, yet others soon join in. A hunter taps two stones together, steady as a heartbeat. Another claps his hands against a hollow log, the sound echoing like a drum. Before long, the entire cave is alive with rhythm, voices rising and falling in waves. You might be surprised to learn that some scholars suggest music played a role in social cohesion, binding groups together more tightly than words alone. Songs could unify breathing, movements, even emotions. Tonight, you feel that truth in your own chest. Your voice is not beautiful, not trained, yet when it joins the chorus, your heart lifts. The cold seems less sharp, the hunger less gnawing. What often goes unnoticed is how sound transforms a cavern. The walls themselves sing back, catching echoes and weaving them into harmony. As you clap in time with the rhythm, the cave seems to double your effort, returning the sound fuller and richer. You close your eyes and imagine that the stone itself is singing along, an ancient partner in your chorus. Curiously, some anthropologists believe that singing by firelight may have shaped early spirituality. The trance-like state created by repeated rhythm could have opened minds to visions, just as dancing flames shaped dreams. You glance at the painted animals on the wall, glowing orange in the firelight, and feel them stir in time with the beat. The bison seems to charge, the deer to leap, the handprints to press more firmly into stone. The line between art, story, and song blurs until all are one. Experts remain divided on whether music was reserved for ritual or simply part of daily life. Was it sacred, performed only in moments of ceremony, or was it woven into every evening like tonight? The debate lingers, but as your group sings now, children giggling, elders humming, hunters stamping their feet, you feel certain it was both. Music is too powerful to confine. It can bless a hunt and also soothe a hungry child. The song grows louder, stronger. Feet stomp, hands clap, voices weave into layers. The rhythm takes hold of your body, pulling you into motion. You sway, your shoulders rocking, your head nodding. Even the weakest among you hum softly, their voices rasping but steady. The fire flares, as if fed by the energy, sparks leaping upward like notes carried into the dark. You might be surprised to learn that rhythm itself may have been one of the earliest forms of communication across distance. A drum beat, a clap, a call could travel farther than words in the cold air of winter. Tonight, though, the music travels not outward but inward, into hearts and minds. Each note stitches the group tighter, weaving fear and hunger into something brighter. What often escapes mention is how music also creates memory. Children listening now will hum these same tunes years from now, shaping their own groups with the same rhythm. Song is inheritance as much as tool. As your voice joins the others, you sense that you are part of a chain, not only within your group, but stretching backward into centuries, forward into generations you will never meet. The song softens slowly, fading into murmurs. Voices quiet, hands fall still. The echoes linger, bouncing once more through the cavern before dissolving into silence. The fire hums on, the only rhythm left. Yet the warmth remains not only from flames but from voices shared, breaths joined. There is still debate among researchers about whether music gave practical survival advantages by calming the group, by organizing collective labor, or whether it was simply expression. In the hush that follows your song, you suspect both. Your stomach is still empty, your body still weary, but your spirit feels lighter, as though the melody itself nourished you. You lie back on your hide, the painted walls dimming as flames sink lower. The rhythm still pulses faintly in your chest, a ghost of the song. Your eyes close, heavy, and sleep comes more easily than hunger should allow. Music has dulled the ache, carried you into a gentler place. The cave is silent again, but not empty. Its walls remember the song just as they remember every story and shadow. And as you drift, you realize something simple yet profound. Sometimes, survival is not only about food or fire. Sometimes, it is about singing in the dark. The night after the singing, the cave feels strangely calm. The air is still heavy with smoke, and hunger has not left, but spirits are steadier. Yet as you sit near the fire, staring at the embers, you notice something else: rituals forming around the flames. Not just stories, not just songs, but patterns of movement, repetition, and symbols that carry weight beyond survival. Archaeological evidence from sites like Chauvet and Lascaux shows more than paintings. There are arrangements of bones, traces of pigment scattered deliberately, and objects placed in ways that suggest ceremony. It is well established that early people practiced ritual, even if its meanings are lost to us. Tonight, you watch as your own group begins one. An elder kneels by the hearth, holding the bone-carved charm of a bird. She lifts it slowly, letting the firelight dance across its surface, then places it carefully on a stone ledge above the flames. The gesture is simple, but the silence that follows is deep. Everyone watches. Children clutch their hides, hunters lower their spears. For a moment, the cave feels like more than stone and fire. It feels like a place where unseen forces listen. You might be surprised to learn that red ochre ground mineral pigment has been found sprinkled in burials and hearths, dating back tens of thousands of years. Scholars suggest it symbolized blood, life, or renewal. Tonight you see echoes of that practice when a woman smears ash from the fire onto her forehead, murmuring softly. She dips her fingers into the grey dust and marks her child's cheeks too. The child giggles, unaware of the weight of the act, but the gesture ripples through the group. What often escapes notice is how rituals soothe fear. Hunger, predators, illness, they cannot always be controlled, but ritual gives shape to uncertainty, a sense that actions matter even against chaos. As you watch, the group begins to hum again, not a song of play this time, but something slower, more deliberate. The rhythm of the chant matches the crackle of flames, weaving sound with light. Curiously, archaeologists have uncovered carved figurines of women, often exaggerated in form, sometimes buried near hearths. Some interpret them as fertility symbols, others as protectors of the household. Whether sacred or not, they prove that objects held symbolic power. In your cave, the bird charm seems to serve a similar role. The elder strokes it gently, as though expecting it to answer. Experts remain divided on whether rituals were shared by the entire group or led by specific shamans, individuals believed to bridge the gap between human and spirit. Watching tonight, you cannot tell. The elder moves with authority, yes, but others join freely, smearing ash, humming softly, adding bones to the fire as offerings. Perhaps leadership in ritual was fluid, shaped by moment rather than title. The fire blazes higher, fat hissing as it drips onto coals. The smoke thickens, swirling upward, carrying sparks like stars. For a heartbeat, you feel dizzy, light-headed, as if the smoke itself has thinned the veil between worlds. You glance at the painted bison on the wall, and for an instant it seems to move, its flank rippling with shadow. Is it trick of flame or vision? You cannot be sure. What often goes unspoken is how rituals may have shaped early concepts of time. By repeating chants, smearing ash, raising charms, the group creates rhythm in days otherwise blurred by hunger and cold. Ritual marks a night as different, special. Tonight, the ordinary has shifted into ceremony, and the weight of it lingers even as the chant fades. You might be surprised to learn that some bone flutes found in caves show wear from repeated use, as though they were not casual toys but central to repeated ceremonies. Perhaps each winter night held its own rites, reminding people they were more than fragile bodies. They were also part of stories, bound by ritual to the land, the fire, and each other. As the chant dwindles, silence returns. The elder places the charm back into her pouch, but the cave does not feel the same. The air is thicker, charged, as though the ritual left behind something invisible. Children curl into hides, lulled by the hum, while hunters sit straighter, their gazes sharpened by belief. You feel it too, a faint strength, fragile but real. There is still debate among researchers about whether such ceremonies truly changed outcomes or simply changed perceptions. Did rituals make hunts more successful, sickness less severe, or did they only strengthen resolve? Watching your group tonight, you sense that the difference may not matter. Belief itself reshapes endurance. If people think they are stronger, perhaps they are. The fire burns low again, coals glowing like watchful eyes. You lie back, pulling hides close, the scent of ash clinging to your skin. Your mind drifts, carrying images of bird charms, ash-marked faces, and painted beasts moving in flickering light. Whether spirit or shadow, vision or imagination, the effect is the same. You feel steadier, less afraid of the night. As sleep pulls you under, you realize that survival is not only breath and bone, it is also ritual, the acts that remind you that your struggle has meaning, and meaning, in its own way, is warmth. The ritual of last night still lingers in the air, as if the cave itself remembers. But tonight brings a different kind of weight. As the fire crackles, an elder lies curled against the wall, his breath shallow, his skin pale. His cough rattles like stones sliding in a riverbed, each one weaker than the last. The group watches quietly, their faces shadowed, for everyone knows what this means. Winter does not spare all. Archaeological finds remind us that death was never far from those who lived in caves. It is well established that Ice Age burials, some simple, others elaborate, mark moments where survival gave way to loss. Graves dusted with ochre, bodies laid with tools or ornaments, show that even in harshness, people honored their dead. Tonight, you see the beginnings of such a moment unfold. The elder's family gathers close, smoothing his hair, wrapping a hide tighter around him, though no warmth remains. A woman hums softly, a tune meant as comfort, her voice trembling. Children peek from their bedding, eyes wide, sensing the heaviness even if they cannot name it. The fire seems quieter, as though it too respects the silence. You might be surprised to learn that some of the earliest evidence of symbolic thought comes from burials red ochre sprinkled across bodies more than 40,000 years ago. Such acts suggest that death was not seen as the end, but a passage. Watching now, you wonder if the group believes the elder will walk with the painted spirits on the walls, or join ancestors in the smoke rising above the fire. What often goes unnoticed is how grief reshapes survival. When one body fails, the group must shift, hunting parties smaller, food divided differently, tasks redistributed. Yet grief also binds. Tonight, as the elder breathes his last, the group moves closer, bodies pressed shoulder to shoulder, as though no one wishes to face the weight alone. Curiously, archaeologists have found graves of children buried with beads and pendants, objects that held no practical use. Some interpret these as offerings of love, tokens of remembrance. In your cave, the bird charm carved days ago is lifted once more. The elder's daughter presses it to his chest, whispering words you cannot hear. Perhaps she hopes it will guide him, or perhaps it is only her way of holding on. Experts remain divided on whether these burial practices marked true belief in an afterlife, or were simply acts of respect for the body. Did people imagine spirits walking elsewhere, or did they honor the dead as a way of soothing the living? Tonight, the debate feels hollow. Belief is not something to measure, it is something to feel. The air itself is thick with it. The elder exhales once more, a sound softer than the fire's hiss. His chest does not rise again. Silence deepens, broken only by the faint drip of water. The group remains still, as though waiting for his spirit to leave. Then, slowly, the women close his eyes, smoothing his face until he looks like he is only sleeping. A hide is pulled over him, hiding the stillness beneath. What often escapes mention is the role of the living after death. The group begins to prepare, not with panic, but with somber purpose. Stones are cleared from a corner of the cave, hides laid down. A few hunters step outside, returning with fresh snow to cleanse the body. The ritual is simple, yet deliberate. Every gesture carries weight, reminding all that even in scarcity, dignity matters. You might be surprised to learn that some burials show traces of flowers, pollen preserved in soil around bones. Did people lay blossoms on their dead even in winter? Or were the flowers placed there by chance, carried by wind or animals? The question remains unresolved, but tonight you imagine petals laid gently on hides, their colors bright against the dark. The elder is lifted carefully, his body wrapped in fur, his head resting on a pillow of grass. A few beads, tiny, painstakingly carved, are tucked into the wrappings. They are precious, yet given freely. Children watch silently, their eyes round, learning not only of death but of how to honor it. The fire flickers, reflecting on the beads until they gleam like stars. There is still debate among scholars about whether groups mourned long after such deaths or moved quickly, survival pressing too hard to allow lingering grief. Perhaps both were true. Tonight, you see grief in every bowed head, but also pragmatism in every hand that works steadily. Life continues, even as it honors what has ended. When the body is placed in the corner, the group gathers. Some hum, others bow their heads, others touch the painted walls as though calling on spirits to guide the elder's journey. The silence stretches, thick and holy. You feel your own chest ache, not only with sorrow but with awe. Even here, in the cold grip of winter, people choose to give meaning to loss. The fire burns low as the night deepens. Children drift into uneasy sleep, clinging to parents. Adults remain wakeful, their eyes fixed on the covered body, as though guarding him one last time. You curl into your hide, tears stinging though you do not wipe them away. The cave feels both emptier and emptier for the absence, fuller for the weight of memory. As you drift towards sleep, one thought settles into you like an ember. Survival is not only breath and hunger and warmth, it is also remembrance. To honor the dead is to affirm the living, to say, even in winter, that lives matter, and that truth glows brighter than the fire itself. The elder's death has left a quiet space in the cave, but the rhythm of survival does not pause. By morning, the fire is coaxed back to life, and hunters prepare again for the cold. Yet in the hush that follows grief, another form of endurance takes shape, healing, not of sorrow, but of bodies. For winter does not only bring hunger and frost, it brings wounds, cracked skin, sore joints, cuts that fester. Survival demands care beyond hunting and fire. Archaeological evidence shows traces of plant fibers, ground seeds, and even residues of medicinal herbs in prehistoric sites. It is well established that people experimented with plants, discovering which soothed pain, which numbed, which killed. Tonight, in your cave, you watch as a woman kneels by the fire, her hands busy with roots gathered in warmer days. She chews them slowly, her saliva mixing with pulp, then presses the mash onto a child's raw, cracked lips. The child winces, but soon sighs, soothed. You might be surprised to learn that Neanderthal remains show traces of yarrow and chamomile in their teeth plants, with no food value but known medicinal effects. Whether chewed for pain relief or brewed into bitter infusions, they reveal a knowledge deeper than chance. Watching the woman at the fire, you sense that same thread of wisdom passed down through trial and memory. What often goes unnoticed is how healing was communal. One person's hurt became the work of all. Tonight, a hunter limps back from the entrance, his ankle twisted on slick stone. Without hesitation, Two others support him, lowering him near the hearth. His foot is wrapped in hide strips soaked with fat, binding it tightly. Another kneels to rub warmth into his calves, muttering softly as if words themselves carry balm. Healing is not just plants and bindings, it is touch, care, the assurance that no one suffers alone. Curiously, in some burials, skeletons show signs of long-term disability injuries that healed over years, even though the individuals could not have hunted or gathered. This suggests that groups carried and fed their wounded, a level of compassion that defied the brutality of winter. You glance around your cave and see proof of the same. The twisted, ankle hunter will not be left behind. His survival is bound to the group's survival. Experts remain divided on how knowledge of plants and remedies was stored. Some believe it was carried in stories and chants, others that it was practical, taught through demonstration. Tonight, the women hum softly as they prepare poultices, grinding dried leaves into powders, mixing them with fat. The rhythm of their work feels like ritual, a living memory of cures spoken without words. You lie back, watching them work, the firelight glowing on their hands. The smell of herbs drifts through the smoke, sharp, earthy, faintly sweet. It mixes with the musk of hides and the tang of ash, creating an atmosphere both heavy and strangely comforting. You inhale deeply, feeling the air soothe your raw throat. Perhaps it is imagination, or perhaps the herbs truly work, their oils rising into the cavern with the smoke. What often escapes mention is the psychological comfort of such care. Even if a poultice could not fully heal, the act of being tended reassured the sick that they mattered. Tonight, the limping hunter smiles faintly as his foot is bound, his eyes closing with relief. The child, whose lips were cracked now, drifts into sleep, her face calm. In their ease, the whole group seems to breathe easier. You might be surprised to learn that even smoke itself may have been seen as medicine. Juniper and sage, when burned, create fumes that clear airways. Archaeological traces suggest such practices were deliberate. Tonight, someone tosses pine resin onto the fire. It flares, crackling, releasing sharp smoke that makes your eyes water but clears your chest. The cave smells brighter, fresher, and for a while the coughing eases. There is still debate among researchers about how much prehistoric healing was practical versus spiritual. Were herbs chosen because they worked, or because spirits were believed to inhabit them? Watching your group tonight, you see no divide. The women murmur to the plants as they grind them, thanking them for strength. Function and faith are inseparable here. Both are needed to believe in survival. As the night deepens, the wounded hunter sleeps soundly, his breathing steady. The child's lips glisten with balm, her face peaceful. Others stretch weary limbs, rubbing joints with fat or wrapping fingers in hides. The cave hums with quiet activity, the sound of care rather than labor. You close your eyes, soothed by the rhythm, comforted by the thought that in this place, healing is as sacred as fire. Sleep takes you slowly, your mind filled with the scent of herbs, the glow of embers, the soft hum of caretakers. Winter is still cruel, but tonight you learn another truth. Survival is not only about strength, it is also about gentleness, about tending wounds with patience, about carrying each other through pain. And in that gentleness, you find warmth deeper than fire. The night of healing has passed, and the group breathes easier. Yet one challenge never sleeps: wood. The fire that keeps away frost and fear also devours fuel without mercy. Every branch burns to ash. Every log collapses into embers. By now, your woodpile is thin, a few brittle sticks stacked in the corner. Without more, the fire will fade, and winter will crawl in like a wolf. Archaeological evidence makes clear that Ice Age people carried fuel into caves, sometimes hauling logs from kilometers away. At sites in Central Europe, charred remains of pine, oak, and birch suggest deliberate selection of woods that burned hotter or longer. It is well established that wood was not just gathered casually, it was planned, carried, hoarded. Tonight, you prepare to do the same. The hunters cannot spare strength, so others rise to gather. You join them, pulling your hide tight as you step into the pale daylight. The snow is deep, crunching beneath your feet, the cold air sharp enough to bite your lungs. Every exhale hangs heavy, drifting upward like smoke. Beyond the cave mouth, the world is silent, white drifts stretching toward a grey horizon. You might be surprised to learn that even frozen, dead wood could be precious. Archaeological studies show that groups often collected fallen branches, sometimes carrying them back on sled-like drags of hide. You bend to lift a frozen limb, its surface slick with ice, your hands stinging as you grip. The weight is awkward, but every piece matters. What often goes unnoticed is how gathering wood was itself dangerous. The farther from the cave, the greater the risk of predators or storms. One person alone might vanish into whiteness, their tracks swallowed by snow. Tonight, your group moves together, spears in hand, eyes scanning the silent trees. The memory of wolves is fresh, and no one wishes to feed them. Curiously, in some regions, evidence suggests that people even burned animal bones when wood was scarce. Bones, when dried, burn hot and long, though their smell is sharp and acrid. You glance at the pile of deer bones near your hearth and wonder if, in days ahead, they too will feed your fire. Already, some of the thinner ones are cracked, marrowless, waiting to be used. Experts remain divided on whether people planned wood collection ahead or gathered only when desperate. Some argue caches of fuel prove foresight, while others see evidence of scrambling at need. In your group, foresight is limited by strength. Every trip outside costs energy you cannot spare. Yet still, here you are, trudging through drifts, arms full of branches, lungs aching with cold. The forest edge looms, branches heavy with snow. You knock some down, shaking loose limbs. Each fall sounds like thunder in the quiet air. The ground is littered with sticks, but frozen solid. They resist your pull. You scrape and tug, hands raw, until one finally breaks free. Its weight presses into your shoulder as you carry it back. Step by step, you retrace your path, each footprint sinking deep. What often escapes mention is how firewood was more than fuel. Certain woods gave off scents or smoke believed to drive away insects or spirits. Birch bark, with its resin, ignited quickly and burned with a bright flame. Pine crackled loud, filling caves with sparks. Oak smouldered longer, steady and reliable. Tonight, you carry a mix of whatever the forest offers, but you know each tree holds its own character. You might be surprised to learn that some archaeological charcoal samples suggest people even used peat or dried moss as supplementary fuel. The smell would have been earthy, thick, filling every corner of the cave. Perhaps in desperation, you too will gather moss from stones, drying it near the hearth until it burns. For now, wood is enough, but only barely. The walk back feels longer than the walk out. Your arms ache, your shoulders scream, your breath burns, yet the sight of the cave mouth ahead fills you with renewed strength. Inside, the others rush to relieve you, dragging branches toward the fire. Soon the hearth blazes brighter, sparks flying upward in relief. The warmth spreads quickly, pushing frost back into corners. What often goes unspoken is the sense of triumph wood brings. Food may fill bellies, but wood fills the spirit. Each log means another night of light, another dawn endured. Around the fire, voices rise, brighter than before. Children clap as flames leap, their eyes wide with delight. Adults sigh deeply, stretching stiff limbs in the new warmth. There is still debate among researchers about how much time daily was spent gathering wood in harsh climates. Some estimates suggest hours, others argue only occasional trips. Watching your group collapse in exhaustion, hides soaked with frost, you know the truth. Whatever the time, it always felt like more. The weight of wood was also the weight of survival. As night deepens, the fire burns high, logs stacked with care. The smell of resin fills the air, sharp but comforting. Shadows leap across painted walls, bison and deer glowing once again. You curl into your hide, muscles sore but warmth steady. The memory of frozen branches fades beneath the crackle of victory. You close your eyes, soot still clinging to your hands, smoke in your hair. The fire hums like a heart, alive because of your labor. Winter still waits outside, merciless and vast. But inside, tonight, you have wood, and wood is hope. The fire roars brightly after the day's labor of gathering wood, but as warmth spreads through the cavern, your mind wanders upward. Beyond the smoke-stained ceiling lies a sky you cannot see. Somewhere above the snow clouds, the moon drifts, stars burn, and the heavens wheel in silence. You cannot witness them tonight, yet you feel their pull, and you suspect your ancestors did too. Archaeological evidence hints that prehistoric people observed the skies carefully. Notched bones found in France may have tracked lunar cycles, while alignments of stones at later sites suggest early forms of astronomy. It is well established that the heavens mattered not only for navigation, but for ritual, for meaning, for marking time when seasons blurred. Tonight, though hidden by storm, the stars live inside your imagination. You lie back, staring at the soot-dark stone, and try to picture them. The fire's sparks rise like miniature stars, glowing and vanishing in the smoky air. Each one reminds you of a larger light beyond. You imagine constellations forming, animals etched into the sky just as they are etched onto your cave walls. Bison charging through darkness, deer leaping across the horizon, birds soaring endlessly. You might be surprised to learn that even without writing, groups may have passed down star lore stories of hunters, spirits, or animals whose forms appeared above. Scholars suggest that such tales could explain the turning of seasons or the timing of hunts. Watching sparks tonight, you feel how natural it would be to map meaning onto the unreachable. If stone walls invite painting, why wouldn't the heavens invite story? What often goes unnoticed is how the sky served as a clock in an age without tools. The waxing and waning moon, the position of stars at dusk, the shift of sunrise all gave rhythm to life. In winter's long nights, those rhythms mattered. Without them, time stretched into endless darkness. Tonight, though you cannot see the sky, you count the crackle of logs as though marking phases of the moon. Curiously, some archaeologists point to stone circles and engraved bones that may have been calendars, mapping both lunar and solar cycles. Though your cave offers no such relic, you sense the same instinct in your group. One elder mutters about how many nights have passed since the last full moon, counting by memory, her voice steady but uncertain. Even here, wrapped in hunger and smoke, the mind reaches upward, longing for order in the stars. Experts remain divided on whether early astronomy was practical or purely symbolic. Did people chart the heavens to know when herds migrated, or did they see spirits guiding the hunt? Perhaps both. Tonight, as the fire flickers, you imagine reindeer not only on the plains but also across the constellations, their hooves sparking starlight as they ran. The line between science and myth does not exist here, only story does. The children stir, restless. One points at the sparks and whispers that they are stars escaping from the fire. Others giggle, repeating the idea until it becomes truth in their eyes. You smile, for the thought is not so different from what scholars propose that stories of stars were once born from firelit nights like this. The heavens may have been unreachable, but they were not untouchable. They could be carried into caves through sparks, through words, through imagination. What often escapes mention is how stars may have offered comfort as much as guidance. To know that lights burned above, constant even in storm, was to feel less alone. Tonight, though clouds hide them, you sense their presence, steady as breath. The fire's glow is small compared to the heavens, yet in its flicker you feel the echo of cosmic light. You might be surprised to learn that even burial sites sometimes align with celestial events, suggesting that death, too, was tied to the sky. Perhaps souls were thought to rise among the stars, joining ancestors as points of light. As you glance toward the corner where the elder rests beneath his hide, you imagine his spirit already walking above, carried across the winter night on a river of starlight. There is still debate among scholars about whether prehistoric people mapped constellations in the way we do today or saw shifting shapes that changed with stories. But perhaps precision was never the point. Meaning was. The heavens were a canvas as wide as imagination, and each group painted their own truths upon it. Tonight, you paint yours: animals, ancestors, spirits, all running across the invisible sky. The fire burns lower, the sparks fewer, yet your eyes still follow them upward. Each one fades quickly, but in your mind, it lingers, glowing longer, brighter. You close your eyes, and the cave ceiling becomes the night sky. Stars spread endlessly, cold yet comforting. They do not banish winter, but they promise that time moves forward, that spring will come, that darkness will not last forever. As sleep pulls at you, you realize that survival is not only about warmth and food, it is also about hope, and hope often comes from looking upward. Even when the stars are hidden, they remain, steady as memory, eternal as stone. And tonight, in your cave, you carry them in your mind like fire in your chest. The memory of stars still lingers in your mind when another need stirs. Tools. Fire warms, hides protect, but without sharp edges, survival falters. Tonight, the hunters sit near the hearth, flint in hand, striking stone against stone with steady rhythm. Sparks leap briefly, but their aim is not flame, it is shape. Archaeological digs reveal countless shards of flint, obsidian, and chert at Ice Age sites. It is well established that tool-making was not an occasional task, but a constant rhythm of life. Points broke, edges dulled, spears splintered. To live through winter was to chip stone endlessly, each strike a promise of tomorrow's hunt. Tonight, the cave echoes with that promise. A hunter crouches with a block of flint, chipping at its surface. The sound is sharp clack, snap, crack as flakes fly, glinting in firelight before vanishing into dust. His hands move with practiced precision, knuckles scarred from years of this work. Slowly a blade takes shape, thin and razor-edged, gleaming like ice. You might be surprised to learn that some blades from Upper Paleolithic sites were sharper than modern steel when freshly struck. Flint's edges fracture at a microscopic scale, slicing clean and deep. Imagine holding such a tool, knowing its edge could cut hide, meat, or even bone with ease. Tonight, you see that truth in the hunter's hands as he tests the blade on a strip of sinew, slicing it as though it were air. What often goes unnoticed is the artistry of this craft. The flakes scattered on the cave floor are not mere waste, they are records of skill, proof of choices made with every strike. Some pieces are discarded, others saved for future shaping. The rhythm of flint knapping is hypnotic, a song of stone and patience. Watching, you feel lulled by its steady pulse, soothed even in hunger. Curiously, archaeologists have found caches of finished blades, stored as though prepared for journeys or lean times. Perhaps tools themselves were wealth, as vital as food. In your cave, each blade is treasured, examined, praised. When a new spearhead gleams in the firelight, others lean forward to admire, nodding in approval. Children reach toward the flakes, pretending to chip their own, eyes wide with fascination. Experts remain divided on whether tool-making was taught formally, or learned by watching. Was it passed like ritual, with demonstration and guidance, or absorbed naturally from constant exposure? Tonight, you see both. A hunter guides his son's hand, adjusting his grip, showing him how to strike at the right angle. The boy's first attempts are clumsy, the flakes too thick, but his smile grows as he succeeds in shaping a sharp edge. The air fills with the smell of stone dust, sharp and earthy, mingling with the smoke. The fire's light catches on the new blades, throwing tiny sparks across their edges. The sound of chipping echoes like heartbeat, steady and strong. You close your eyes briefly, letting the rhythm wash over you. It is not music, not story, but it carries the same power: creation. You might be surprised to learn that some tools carried symbolic carvings, lines etched into handles, grooves added to blades. These marks did not improve function, but they spoke of identity, of pride in craft. In your cave, one hunter scores a line into his new spearhead, a flourish that makes others smile. The gesture is unnecessary, yet meaningful. Tools are not just instruments, they are extensions of self. What often escapes mention is how fragile tools could be. A blade, though sharp, might shatter on bone. A spearhead could splinter in ice. The need for constant repair was relentless, demanding skill as much as patience. Tonight, you watch hunters patch shafts with sinew, straighten wood in fire's heat, bind stones tighter with resin. Each act is small, but together they weave survival. Curiously, obsidian volcanic glass was sometimes transported across great distances, traded or carried from far lands. Its edges were sharper even than flint, prized by all who held it. You imagine such treasures passing from hand to hand, glowing in firelight, tokens of journeys and connections beyond your own cave. Tonight, you hold only flint, but its shine feels like treasure enough. There is still debate among researchers about whether toolmaking was dominated by men, women, or shared freely. Some evidence suggests women crafted as skillfully as men, balancing work with gathering and child rearing. Watching your cave, you see women chipping as deftly as hunters, their hands steady, their eyes sharp. Skill knows no boundary here, only need. The fire grows low, but the rhythm of stone continues. Shards scatter like fallen stars, glinting briefly before fading. New blades gleam, ready for hunts, ready for carving hides, ready for splitting bones. Each one is more than a tool, it is a spark of future survival, carried in stone. You curl into your hide, the sound of chipping still echoing faintly. The smell of dust lingers in your nose, the glint of blades in your memory. You realize that survival is not only fire and food, it is the sharpness of edges, the patience of hands shaping stone. And as sleep pulls at you, you feel comforted by the knowledge that tomorrow, when hunger returns, the blades will be ready. The pile of new blades lies ready by the hearth, gleaming faintly in the glow. Yet survival does not rest on stone alone. Tonight, the focus shifts to another ancient craft, weaving hides and fibers into clothing. For in the heart of winter, bare skin is an invitation to death. The cold presses through every crack, and only the careful labor of sewing and stitching keeps it at bay. Archaeological discoveries from Upper Paleolithic sites reveal bone needles with drilled eyes, some dating back more than 30,000 years. It is well established that early humans stitched hides into tailored garments, far more fitted than loose drapes. Tonight, you see such skill alive. A woman sits cross-legged near the fire, a bone needle in hand, its point gleaming. She threads sinew through its eye and pulls a strip of reindeer hide taut across her knees. Her fingers move steadily, looping, piercing, pulling. The sound is faint but deliberate. Puncture, tug, tighten. You might be surprised to learn that traces of fur and twisted fibers have been preserved in frozen burials, proving that clothing was layered and complex. Hoods, boots, gloves all shaped with care. In your cave, you watch as boots are patched with new soles, gloves sewn tighter to trap warmth. A child's coat is lined with rabbit fur, soft and thick, the stitches nearly invisible. Survival here is not only about weapons, it is also about the patient rhythm of needle and thread. What often goes unnoticed is how sewing binds more than fabric. Around the fire, people work together, one scraping fat from hides to soften them, another cutting strips of sinew into thread, another sharpening bone needles. The circle hums with quiet purpose, each hand contributing to warmth that will embrace another's body. Care flows through every stitch. Curiously, Archaeologists have found decorated clothing fringes cut into hems, beads sewn into seams. Such embellishments serve no practical purpose, yet they reveal a longing for beauty, even in hardship. Tonight, one woman stitches a line of shells into her child's hood. The shells clack softly as she works, glowing faintly in firelight. Practicality and pride mingle. Clothing is armor, but also art. Experts remain divided on whether sewing was primarily women's work or shared widely. Some evidence suggests men stitched hunting gear while women crafted daily clothing. Watching your cave tonight, you see no rigid divide. Hunters too mend their own gloves, patching worn palms with thick hide. Children attempt clumsy stitches, giggling when the thread knots, but learning through laughter. The smell of tanned hides fills the air sharp, musky, layered with smoke. You wrinkle your nose, but beneath the odor lies comfort. Every strip of leather carries the memory of a successful hunt, every stitch a promise of warmth. The cave flickers with shadows of bent heads, busy hands, focused eyes. This is not glamorous work, but it is sacred. Without it, the cold would claim you. You might be surprised to learn that sinew thread, though fragile-looking, was stronger than modern string. When dried, it shrank, pulling stitches tight. Hides sewn with sinew could withstand snow, wind, and weeks of wear. Tonight, you watch stitches disappear into fur, invisible yet holding everything together. It feels like a metaphor for survival itself. Quiet, unseen, but unbreakable. What often escapes mention is how clothing was layered strategically. Inner furs trapped warmth, outer hides blocked wind. Boots were stuffed with moss for insulation, gloves lined with hair. Archaeological studies of frozen remains confirm such complexity. As you watch, a mother stuffs dry grasses into her child's boots, murmuring a lullaby as she works. The child wriggles but soon sighs with comfort. Survival is in the details. Curiously, needles themselves were often polished, smoothed until they gleamed. Some even carried carved designs. Imagine holding such a tool, not only useful but beautiful, a symbol of craft and care. In your cave, one man strokes his needle like a talisman, tucking it into a pouch with reverence. To lose it would be disaster, like losing fire itself. There is still debate among researchers about whether clothing was purely functional or also symbolic markers of status, identity, or belonging. Were beads on coats simply decoration, or did they signify something deeper? Tonight, as you watch shells sewn into a hood, you feel both possibilities. Beauty feeds the spirit, and spirit feeds endurance. Perhaps in winter, that is as vital as warmth. The night deepens, and the fire glows steady. Around it, coats, boots, and gloves take shape, layer by layer. Each stitch is small, but together they form a shield against the season. Children nod off against hides, lulled by the soft rhythm of sewing. Elders stroke newly finished garments, sighing as warmth seeps through weary bodies. You lie back, pulling your own coat tighter. Its seams scratch faintly. Its fur tickles your chin, but its warmth is life. The cave hums softly with the sound of stitching, like a lullaby in thread. You close your eyes, soothed by the thought that tomorrow, when wind howls and snow bites, you will step out wrapped in the labor of many hands. And as sleep carries you, you realize that survival is not only stone and fire, it is also fabric and thread, patience and artistry. To stitch is to defy winter with every loop of sinew, to turn hides into armor, to carry beauty even into the darkest cold. The cave is quieter now. The clothing lies finished, folded into neat bundles by the fire. The hides smell faintly of smoke and musk, but when pressed to the skin, they radiate warmth, a kind of second body grown by human hands. Tonight, after so many weeks of struggle, hunger, sickness, and loss, you sense the group beginning to pause, not because danger is gone, but because endurance has carried you this far. The rhythm of survival slows into something softer. Archaeological finds suggest that winter was not only endured, but marked by reflection. Objects buried with care, walls painted with patterns, songs remembered across generations. These point to moments when people stepped outside the urgency of survival and into meaning. It is well established that humans have always looked for more than breath and fire. Tonight, you feel that yearning rise as the group gathers around the hearth. The fire is high, fed with the last strong logs. Its glow washes the cave walls, pulling painted animals into motion. The bison charge, the deer leap, the handprints glow red as if freshly pressed. The hunters sit quietly, their spears resting at their sides. Mothers hum gently, rocking children into drowsiness. Elders lean close, their voices low, their stories already fading into whispers. You might be surprised to learn that in some caves, footprints of adults and children were found stamped into clay floors, preserved for tens of thousands of years. Scholars suggest they were left during dances or rituals by firelight. Tonight, you see the same. Children shuffle in slow circles, their feet tapping softly, their laughter muted but present. Each step leaves a mark, even if snow will cover it tomorrow. What often goes unnoticed is how reflection binds a group. Around the fire, people speak not only of hunts and hunger, but of those who came before the elder who died days ago, the ancestors whose spirits are painted on walls. A woman lifts the bird charm once more, pressing it to her lips before hanging it above the hearth. The silence that follows is thick, sacred, a reminder that even in survival, remembrance matters. Curiously, archaeologists have noted that some Ice Age carvings depict not only animals but abstract lines and patterns, spirals, dots, cross-hatchings, whose meanings remain mysterious. Were they calendars, maps, prayers, or simply marks of thought made visible? Tonight, you watch as a boy drags a charred stick across stone, leaving smudges that look like stars or perhaps rivers. His act is playful, yet everyone watches as though something deeper is unfolding. Experts remain divided on whether such art was functional guides to seasons, herds, or landmarks, or symbolic expressions of belief. But as the firelight glows, you realize it hardly matters. Meaning is what people give it. Tonight, the smudges on stone are as important as spears or hides. They prove the group is more than hunger. They prove imagination endures even in the darkest winter. The night stretches long, but not empty. The fire hums steadily. The chants soften. The movements slow. The cave feels both vast and intimate, stone walls cradling lives as fragile as embers. You lean back against cold rock, watching shadows curl upward, and let yourself breathe deeply. For the first time in many nights, your breath feels steady, not rushed. You might be surprised to learn that scientists believe humans' ability to endure such winters lay not only in tools or clothing, but in cooperation. Shared work, shared fire, shared story. Without these, no single person would have survived. Tonight, you feel the truth of that in every shoulder pressed against yours, every hide shared, every song hummed into the smoky dark. What often escapes mention is the quiet after survival tasks are done. It is not dramatic, not painted on cave walls, not buried in graves. It is the silence of a group leaning together, the warmth of children curled in hides, the steady hum of embers. This too is history. This too carried people through. The fire burns lower, shadows lengthening across stone. The painted animals fade into darkness. The bird charm glimmers faintly before sinking into shadow. Around you, breathing slows. One by one, your companions drift into sleep, their faces calm, their bodies curled close. The cave quiets, filled only with the sigh of smoke and the whisper of wind pressing at the entrance. There is still debate among researchers about how much of prehistoric life we can truly understand. Do we read too much into bones and ashes, or too little? Perhaps the truth is simpler. People endured. They laughed, sang, wept, stitched, hunted, healed. They faced winters that would have crushed weaker spirits, yet they carried one another through. Tonight, you feel that endurance in your own chest. warm and steady as the fire. You curl into your hide, pulling it close, its seams scratching faintly against your skin. Your belly is not full, your lungs are not clear, but your spirit feels strangely at peace. Outside, winter still rages, snow still falls, predators still prowl. But inside, you have warmth, you have story, you have each other. And that, in its quiet way, is victory. And now, as the last sparks fade and the fire sinks into embers, let the cave dissolve from your mind. Imagine instead the soft weight of your own blankets, the hush of your own room. The long winter of those distant people is behind you, their breath still echoing faintly in memory. But your body belongs to a gentler night. Breathe deeply, slowly. Let the chill of the cave be replaced by warmth. Let the smoke and stone melt into quiet air. The struggle of survival, the scraping of flint, the rhythm of chants, all of it drifts away like sparks into darkness. What remains is calm, steady as the rise and fall of your chest. You might picture those painted animals one last time, the bison, the deer, the small handprints pressed against stone. They stand not only for survival, but for beauty, imagination, and the stubborn will to endure. Let them fade softly, like dreams slipping out of reach. Their work is done, and so is yours. Allow your mind to soften, your body to sink. The tension of the day loosens like knots untying, your thoughts slowing into gentle ripples. Each breath carries you deeper into stillness. You are safe, you are warm, you are home. Let the last echoes of the cave, the whispers of ritual, the sparks of fire, the laughter of children become whispers in your own dreams. They will keep you company as you drift, ancient guardians of peace. Sleep now, easily, softly. Let the story close, not with fear or hunger, but with calm. The cave rests, the fire rests, and you too can rest. Sweet dreams.